Chapter 116. Bang! The stone smashed on the back of the mountain guardian stone. There was a crisp sound and sparks flew. Fang Yen looked at Mason, who was pressed under him, and asked, "Are you okay?" Mason shook his head and then nodded. A foul smell came, and he was so scared that he peed his pants. Can you imagine that scene? When he turned around to look, a big stone whistled toward his head. There was also a young guy who was chasing him while shouting at him to wait a minute. Could he wait? Waiting was only a dead end. Therefore, he ran even harder. As a result, he was pressed to the ground from behind and the stone flew over his head. It was too exciting. Fang Yen smelled the foul smell of urine and got up from his body in disgust. He said, "You're already a big man. Do you have to wear a diaper every time you go out?" Mason didn't understand what Fang Yen was saying, and he wasn't in the mood to listen. He was scared, and his body was lying there like a puddle of mud. Fang Yen knew that he couldn't run anymore, so he didn't put up any guard against him and walked back to the group of students. When the students saw Fang Yen came back, they applauded and cheered. "Mr. Fang, that kick just now was so cool. Mr. Fang, you caught up with the stone that was kicked. You're the Superman in our hearts." Mr. Fang, who chased the stone and shouted, "Wait a minute," was so cute. "Mr. Fang, can you be my male god?" "Qin Etienne," Fang Yen shouted. Qin Etienne, who was wearing a white sportswear of an unknown brand and white sports shoes, came out from the crowd. He looked at the angry Fang Yen and asked, "Fang Yen, what's the matter?" Fang Yan's face darkened even further. He quickened his steps and stood in front of Qin Etienne, whispering, "I've told you to call me Mr. Fang in front of the students. How can you be so rude? You're making me lose face by calling my name. Okay?" Qin Etienne smiled like a spring flower and looked at Fang Yen without blinking with his bright eyes. He didn't care about his anger at all and said in a low voice that only the two of them could hear, "You said it, but I didn't." "Qin Etienne." Fang Yen suddenly raised his voice. He couldn't always whisper to each other. The students would misunderstand their relationship. There were rumors in Rosefinch Secondary that Qin Etienne was pursuing his teacher, because the parties involved had never responded, and the relationship between them was too distant. Therefore, the rumors were not hot enough. However, Fang Yen would never do something like adding fuel to the fire. "Why did you throw the stone at me?" When the stone flew over, someone shouted, "Here!" At that time, he didn't listen carefully enough. When Fang Yen solved the stone problem and thought about it carefully, he found that the voice was very similar to Qin Etienne's voice. "I saw you looking for it, so I thought you wanted it," Qin Etienne said. "I was looking, but why did you throw such a big stone?" Fang Yen said angrily. "Do you know how dangerous it is?" "I know," Qin Etienne said. "I also know that you can solve it." Qin Etienne pointed at Mason, who was lying on the ground, and said, "You see, I was right." "Qin Etienne." Fang Yen wanted to shout some threatening words to punish Qin Etienne. Fang Yen wanted to shout, "Qin Etienne, I want to deduct your credits. Qin Etienne, I want you to be older than Qin Etienne. Ask your parents to come to the school to find me, Qin Etienne." But all these threats seemed to be no threat to Qin Etienne. What could he do to a student who was sent by the school principal? You really have no idea what to do with such a student. "What do you want to say?" Qin Etienne asked. "Don't do this next time," Fang Yen said. Bolton's leg was injured, Jaco's camera was broken, and Mason was so scared that he wet his pants. The three of them would never think about escaping again. While waiting for the police to come, everyone listened to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin repeat the cause of the incident. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were so beautiful, but Jaco and Mason were so bad. The more beautiful Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were, the more bad Jaco and Mason were. The students of Class 9 were filled with righteous indignation after listening to their story. The girls were busy comforting the two cute and beautiful little Lolas. While the boys were comforting them, they also tried to find out their phone numbers and solemnly promised that the next time they went out to draw, they would be willing to be free bodyguards by their side. If they were thirsty, they would bring water, and if they were sick, they would bring medicine. They also said that they were completely different from Jacob, Mason, and Bolton. They despised perverts the most. Tang Cheng, who was standing beside Qin Etian, pursed his lips and said, "Looks like those two girls are very popular." Qin Etian looked at him and said indifferently, "They are indeed very cute." While they were talking, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin broke through the encirclement of the boys and walked towards Qin Etian. Jiang Qin looked at Qin Etian, who was a head taller than her, and said, "Are you Senior Qin Etian?" "I am Qin Etian," Qin Etian said with a smile. "Is it really you?" Yuan Lin's voice became excited. "Senior Etian, you are our idol. We already knew you when you were in number 1 middle school. We even went to number 1 middle school to look for you. But we didn't see you. That's really regretful," Qin Etian said. She took the initiative to extend her hand to Yuan Lin and said, "It's not too late to get to know each other now, right? It's not too late, it's not too late." Yuan Lin quickly shook hands with Qin Etian. "My name is Yuan Lin." "My name is Jiang Qin," Jiang Qin said as she shook hands with Qin Etian. Qin Etian looked at Jiang Qin and said, "What a beautiful girl. When Fang Yan lived in your house, he must have given you a lot of trouble, right?" Jiang Qin looked at Qin Etian with sharp eyes and didn't know why she would say such a thing. "It's all right. Fang Yan is a very easy person to get along with," Jiang Qin said. "You have to call him teacher," Qin Etian said. "I know. I have always called him Teacher Fang Yan," Jiang Qin explained. "Good girl." Qin Etian touched Jiang Qin's head. Jiang Qin suddenly felt a little awkward and felt a little wronged. But he didn't understand where this awkwardness and grievance came from. The scenic police finally arrived. They were shocked when they saw the 3 Americans lying on the ground. The leading fatso policeman shouted and said, "What's going on? How can you hit people? Who hit people?" Fatso was too fat. The peak of Shensha Mountain was halfway up the mountain. There were no elevators or cars, so they could only climb it by human strength. This was too painful for Fatso. He cursed as he climbed. He had been suppressing his anger for a long time. When he finally reached the destination, he was even more unhappy when he saw the 3 foreigners lying on the ground. If this kind of thing wasn't handled well, it would become a diplomatic dispute. He hated the perpetrators, who caused him trouble even more. "I hit them," Fang Yan said. "Me too." Tangqing walked to Fang Yan's side and stood side by side with him. At this time, he couldn't let Fang Yan be the only one in the limelight. "Me too. I hit them too." The boys stood out one by one and all chose to stand with Fang Yan and Tangqing. The fatso policeman was furious and said, "You have the right to hit people? Who allowed you to hit people? Don't you know that hitting people is against the law? So what if you have more people? Believe it or not, I will arrest all of you." Fang Yan looked at the fatso policeman with an unfriendly expression and said, "Shouldn't you first ask what happened?" "Of course I will. Go to our station and ask." The fatso policeman said, "You are students? Which school are you from? Come, all of you, come with me." These students made him unhappy, and he was ready to make these students unhappy. "You let me climb half of Tianshan Mountain, and I will let you follow me down the mountain." "We just went up the mountain, and I have to take my students on a trip," Fang Yan explained. The fatso policeman sneered and said, "You want to go on a trip after hitting people? How about a day trip to prison?" Seeing this scene, Qiao Lei got out of the crowd and began to make a phone call. Soon, the phone was connected. After Qiao Lei said a few words on the phone, he held the phone and walked to the fatso policeman, motioning him to answer the phone. "What?" The fatso policeman stared at Qiao Lei vigilantly and asked with an unfriendly expression. "Captain Qiao Zhenya, please answer the phone," Qiao Lei said. "Captain Qiao." The fatso policeman was shocked. Although Qiao Zhenya was not his direct superior, his rank was much higher than his, and he was a strong contender for the deputy chief of the Tianhe branch. Even the chief of the Shensha Mountain police station had to curry favor with him, so how could he dare to offend him? The fatso policeman quickly took the phone from Qiao Lei and said enthusiastically, "Captain Qiao, be serious," Qiao Zhenya said on the phone. With just these 4 words, he hung up the phone. The fatso policeman was sweating. He handed the phone to Qiao Lei and asked, "Who is Captain Qiao to you?" F***CKU. Fang Yan completely exploded. He pointed at the fatso policeman's face and scolded. Why couldn't you just enforce the law from the beginning? Why did your attitude change so much after a phone call? Are you working for the law or for power? We have always been on the side of justice. Why can't you change your attitude only through connections? Fong Yen pointed at Jocko Messon Bolton and the other two lying on the ground and said, I thought people like them were annoying, but your behavior is 1,000 times more annoying. You are Huasia's man, and you are a policeman. What kind of people are standing in front of you? They are students, the hope of our country's future. Your behavior did not make them love you, but made you look like a scoundrel. You want them to be influenced by you? You want them to become like you? Fong Yen waved his hand and shouted, I don't agree. Chapter 117. Ever since he was a child, the person Fong Yen was most afraid of was his grandfather, Lu Gong. The reason he was afraid was because every word that his grandfather, Lu Gong, said was correct. You couldn't refute it, and you had no way to refute it. He was selfless and always stood in the most impartial position to evaluate some things. When it came to some major issues of right and wrong, he would stick to his original heart and never waver. He always stood on the side of justice. If you argued with him and refuted him, then you would stand on the opposite side of justice. Fong Yen was afraid of Lu Gong, but he also respected Lu Gong. In his body flowed the Fong family's hard-working, persistent, and competitive blood, but also mixed with the Lu family's erudition, stubbornness, and politeness. As for the little bit of despicable factor, it was completely self-taught after growing up. He didn't get anyone's inheritance or guidance. Lu Gong, like his name, was unyielding and couldn't be bothered with even a grain of sand in his eyes. Therefore, Lu Gong said that he only had 1.5 friends in his life. Fong Yen was much gentler than Lu Gong. He knew how to make choices and compromise, but on some things, he also had his own bottom line and reverse scales that he would not hesitate to protect with his life. In Fong Yan's view, Jocko, Bolton, and Mason were really annoying. They were perverts, beasts, and scum that everyone despised. They broke the law, and if the motive of the matter was found out, what awaited them would be the punishment of the law. However, the behavior of this police officer, Fatso, was already hateful. His attitude was rude and unreasonable, and he did things according to his authority. Such behavior might not violate the law, but it would only form a common perception in society that it was easy to get things done with money and power. When you encountered a problem, your first reaction was not how to solve the problem, but who to find and how many gifts to give. Where was the hope of this country? High school students were at the critical stage of gradually getting out of their immaturity and gradually coming into contact with society, and slowly moving towards maturity. If they saw this scene, what kind of impact would it have on their hearts? This was also the reason why Fong Yen flew into a rage on the spot and shouted, I don't agree. I don't agree with your blasphemy and dereliction of duty. I don't agree with my students being influenced by you. I don't agree with them eventually becoming like you. When the youth is rich, so is the country. If the youth were strong, the nation would be strong. If the youth is magnanimous, the country will be happy and healthy. What is right, and what is wrong is wrong. It doesn't matter whether they are Americans or not, and it doesn't matter who is standing behind us. All you have to do is investigate, ask, and find the truth. Bring the bad guys to justice and let the good guys be innocent. You are a policeman. This is what you should do. Fong Yen pointed at Fatso's face and said bluntly. Lu Tao was scolded harshly. He had never been humiliated like this in all his years as a police officer. He wanted to retort, but he was worried that he would offend Captain Xiao Zhenye. Now that Xiao Zhenye stood up for them, who knew what kind of powerful people would stand up behind the other students? If he didn't say anything and let this little teacher scold and attack him, he would be too aggrieved and flustered. After all, on this Xinsha mountain he was considered a leader, and he could not raise his head in front of his subordinates. Lu Tao was like an enraged fat wolf. He glared at Fong Yen for a while, then roared in a hoarse voice, Zhang Dekai, you will investigate this assault case. You must be fair and just. After shouting this, he went down the mountain alone without saying goodbye. Zhang Dekai was a young man with glasses. He looked gentle, but he was skinny and had dark skin, like a scholar wrapped in a layer of charcoal. He grinned, revealing 2 rows of snow-white teeth. He walked in front of Fang Yen and said, "May I know how to address you, teacher?" Fang Yen said, Fang as in Fang Zhengjing, and Yen as in the descendants of Yen and Huang. Fang Yan's self-introduction stunned Zhang Dekai. After being stunned for a while, he said, "Good name. This name is really mighty and domineering. Teacher Fang Yen taught us a very good lesson today. No matter what Chief Lu thinks, I felt my blood boil when I heard it. Some things, Sai, it's better not to talk about them. However, I can't control others, but I can control myself. In the future, I will definitely be a good police officer and be a good example for the students." Zhang Dekai adjusted his glasses, then straightened his body and saluted Fang Yen. He said, "Today, we have disappointed Mr. Fang and the students. We are very sorry. Please watch our performance from now on." The 2 colleagues behind Zhang Dekai also raised their hands and saluted at the same time. Their eyes were sincere and their expressions were solemn. After listening to Zhang Dekai's confession and seeing their sincere salutes, Fang Yan's heart surged and he felt very gratified. This was the greatness of the Huaxia people. When the country was in danger, there would be a large number of heroes who would stand up and shed their blood to save the country and the people. When etiquette collapsed, there would also be countless grassroots people who would stand up and selflessly contribute day after day, year after year, to be willing to be an example. The latter might not be able to leave their names in history, but they were the backbone of the country and influenced the culture of the country. They were equally great. Fang Yen patted Zhang Dekai's shoulder hard and said, "Thank you. You have also taught my students a very good lesson. I think they will remember today. When they encounter similar things or other things, they will know how to deal with it." Zhang Dekai grinned again and said with a little embarrassment, "Who can tell me what is going on?" Fang Yen waved to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, indicating that the 2 parties involved would explain the whole process of the incident. The truth of the matter was soon revealed. Jocko, Mason, and Bolton claimed that Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin ran away after receiving their modeling commission of 3,000 yuan, and they chased after them in order to get their money back. However, after investigation, it was found that the 3 of them had not paid any fees to the 2 women. What was more ironic was that, under the leadership of Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, everyone rushed to the scene of the crime, which was the place where Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin had just begun to draw. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin took out their wallets and some accessories from their toolboxes. Jiang Qin's wallet only had a few hundred yuan in it, which was nothing special for students nowadays. Yuan Lin was obviously a rich young woman. The brand name wallet itself was worth a lot, and there were more than 1,000 yuan in cash, 2 bank cards, and a brand name watch in it. The value of these things added up to tens of thousands of yuan. Not to mention the value of the LV Classic toolbox that she used to store her paints and drawing paper. They abandoned so many things and ran away for the sake of Jaco's 3,000 yuan? Was there something wrong with their brains? Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were the smart type at first glance, so there was nothing wrong with their brains. Then, if there was nothing wrong with the brains of Jocko Messon Bolton and the other 2, then they were lying. Zhang Dekai and his colleagues put handcuffs on Jocko Messon Bolton and the other 2, and prepared to take them back to the station for further interrogation. "Mr. Fang, the truth has been revealed. I promise that this time we will not let our students be wronged." Zhang Dekai stood in front of Fang Yen and said with a serious face, "Thank you for your hard work." Fang Yen said, "This is what we should do." Zhang Dekai said with a smile, "Mr. Fang just said that this is our duty, isn't it?" "Haha, yes." Fang Yen also laughed. "You are polite to us, so we will be polite to you. You treat us like air, so we will certainly not speak kindly to you. Isn't this reasonable?" "Yes, it is reasonable," Zhang Dekai said with a laugh. The bad guys were taken away, and the good guys naturally had to continue their trip. Because of the impact of this matter, everyone's trip was delayed. They had to climb to the top of the mountain before dark and rest in the hotel at the top of the mountain at night. Early the next morning, everyone went to watch the sunrise. Fang Yen let Tang Cheng and Huang Haoren lead the team and continued to lead the ninth class to climb to the top of the mountain. He said a few words to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and then went to catch up with the rest of the team. The boys were reluctant to part with Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, and some of them were bold enough to invite them to go to the top of the mountain to watch the sunrise. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin smiled without saying anything, and did not make it clear whether they would go or not. When the crowd dispersed, only Fang Yen, Jiang Qin, and Yuan Lin were left in the dense forest. Fang Yen looked at the two girls and said with a smile, "Pack up and go back down the mountain quickly. Your family will be worried if you go back late." Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at each other and did not answer Fang Yan's question. Fang Yen squatted down to help the two girls clean up the easel and brush that had been kicked away by Mason. On the grass in the distance, he found several pieces of drawing paper that had fallen here. He picked up the drawing paper and found a familiar figure on it. He took the drawing paper and glanced at Jiang Qin, and Jiang Qin also happened to look at him. Seeing the drawing paper in Fang Yan's hand, Jiang Qin reacted. "Ah!" She cried out in surprise and quickly ran towards Fang Yanfei. Crash! Jiang Qin snatched the drawing paper from Fang Yan's hand and said angrily, "You, how can you casually look through other people's things?" "I have never seen such an ugly Lu Dehua," Fang Yan said with a smile. "You drew our idol Lu Dehua like this. Have you ever thought about the feelings of us fans?" "Who said this is Lu Dehua?" Jiang Qin pouted and said, "What I drew was an ugly monster." "What ugly monster?" Yuan Lin's puzzled eyes looked at Jiang Qin and Fang Yan and said, "Let me see how ugly it is." "No." Jiang Qin refused and wanted to put the drawing paper in his hand into the box. "If you don't want to give it, then don't give it." "Who wants it?" Crash! Yuan Lin said that she didn't want it, but when Jiang Qin was unprepared, she snatched the drawing paper. Chapter 118. Against the backdrop of the red maple leaves, a young man in a white shirt stood among the trees. A gentle breeze ruffled his soft black hair. The sun was shining brightly, and his handsome cheeks were gilded with a layer of almost transparent golden color. He held his head high, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. His whole body was filled with a kind of comfortable pride and complacency. When Yuan Lin saw the figure in the picture, she suddenly became happy. She giggled and said, "Sweetheart, who is this ugly monster?" Jiang Qin got up and chased Yuan Lin, shouting angrily, "Yuan Lin, you bad guy. Give the painting back to me. Give it back to me." Yuan Lin grabbed the drawing paper and circled around the maple trees and Jiang Qin. She refused to return the drawing in her hand and said, "No, I won't. I won't give it back. If you don't tell me who this ugly monster is, I won't give it to you. Give it to me." "No." "Will you give it to me or not?" "No." "Yuan Lin." Jiang Qin stopped. Her cheeks were red, and she looked at Yuan Lin with tears in her eyes. A pitiful look of indignation and humiliation. Young girls' feelings were always poems. The vague love for a boy was their most private and sensitive taboo. They were ashamed to admit it and annoyed to see others. Yuan Lin's behavior undoubtedly exposed her feelings in front of the person involved, which made her ashamed and angry, and her tears flowed out uncontrollably. Seeing Jiang Qin crying, Yuan Lin hurried over. She stuffed the painting paper into Jiang Qin's hand, held Jiang Qin's shoulder, and said with heartache, "Sweetheart, don't cry. Don't cry. I'm joking with you. It's my fault. It's all my fault. I won't ask, okay? I won't ask anymore." Jiang Qin wiped his tears with the back of his hand and cried even more sadly. "I didn't even cry when you made my idol Lu Dehua look so ugly. Why are you crying?" Fang Yan said helplessly, "You're so annoying." Jiang Qin stomped his feet angrily. "I told you it's not Lu Dehua. Nong Pa? I thought this person looked a bit like Nong Pa. So you guys..." Fang Yan pretended not to see the characters on the paper and deliberately led them in the wrong direction. "Who said it was a farmstead? Why would I draw him?" Jiang Qin was even angrier. She was so angry that she forgot to continue crying. "I can draw whoever I want. What does that have to do with you?" Yes, It has nothing to do with me. Fang Yen raised his hands in surrender. He knew that this was not the time to provoke this girl. Hurry up and pack up. I'll send you down the mountain. I'm not going back today, Jiang Qin said. What? Fang Yen widened his eyes and looked at Jiang Qin. Even Yuan Lin looked at her companion in surprise. Didn't this girl discuss with her before making a decision? I said, we're not going back tonight, Jiang Qin said. She turned to look at Yuan Lin and said, haven't you always wanted to see the sunrise at Shisha Mountain? We're not going back tonight. We'll wake up early tomorrow to see the sunrise. We can even bring a drawing board and draw it. Didn't the teacher say that? Only by experiencing it yourself can you draw that kind of breathtaking scenery. This is a good opportunity. What do you mean a good opportunity? Yuan Lin laughed in her heart. Before Fang Yen came, why didn't I hear that you wanted to stay at the top of the mountain to see the sunrise? Why didn't I hear that this was a good opportunity? But we agreed to go home tonight, Yuan Lin said worriedly. Won't your mom be worried if we don't go back? My mom must be worried to death. Idiot. Can't we just call back and tell them? Jiang Qin said. Just tell them that we're going to paint the sunrise and won't go back tonight. No. Yuan Lin shook her head. My mom will definitely not agree. And neither will your mom. We're girls. Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yen and wanted to say something but stopped. Fang Yen pretended not to understand the pleading look in Jiang Qin's eyes and said, Yuan Lin is right. If you two girls don't go back tonight, your family will be worried. If you really want to see the sunrise and paint it, then go back and discuss with your parents. Come back when they agree or let them accompany you. Isn't that better? Better my ass. Jiang Qin curled her lips and said, who would want to travel with their parents? Yuan Lin also nodded vigorously and said, that's right. Don't do this and don't do that. So annoying. Fang Yen was very hurt. He ignored the rebellious mentality of children at this age. Jiang Qin seemed to have made up his mind. He looked at Yuan Lin and said, you call your mom, and I'll call my mom. We'll tell them that we're with a lot of classmates and nothing will happen. We'll also stay on the top of the mountain tonight and get up early tomorrow morning to watch the sunrise. After watching the sunrise, we'll go back. What can happen? Yuan Lin was also persuaded by Jiang Qin and said, okay, then shall we call now? Yes. Jiang Qin nodded. If my mom doesn't believe it, you can testify for me. If your mom doesn't believe it, I'll also testify for you. Happy cooperation. The two girls clapped their hands together happily. Fang Yen was speechless. From their conversation, it could be heard that they must have done many things like helping each other hide and deceive. Seeing that Jiang Qin was about to take out his phone to make the call, Fang Yen stopped him and said, are you really going to stay? Of course, Jiang Qin said. For art, Yuan Lin said. Then, I'll make the call for you, Fang Yen said. You'll make the call for us? Jiang Qin looked at Fang Yen uncertainly. If her mom knew that Fang Yen was also at Shisha Mountain, wouldn't she be more determined to call them back? Yes, I'll make the call for you. Fang Yen nodded. It's not a bad thing. Why must you lie to them? If they don't know the truth about you, they'll be worried and scared the whole night. It's not easy being a parent. Why should we let them worry about us? But, what if my mom doesn't agree? Jiang Qin said worriedly. I'll explain to her. She'll agree, Fang Yen said. What if? If she doesn't agree, I'll send you down the mountain and you can take a car back, Fang Yen said. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin discussed for a while and finally decided to compromise. Jiang Qin dialed his mother's number with his phone and said, Mom, Fang Yen wants to talk to you. Fang Yen took the phone from Jiang Qin and said with a smile, Sister Li, I'm Fang Yen. I haven't seen you for a long time. I really miss your cooking. Fang Yen. Sister Li's voice paused for a moment. If you miss me, come over for dinner when you have time. You're with Shangqin? What's up? Sister Li, it's like this. Fang Yen explained with a smile. I brought my students to Shisha Mountain for a trip and happened to meet the two girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, who came to the mountain to paint. They heard that my students and I were going to spend the night at the hotel on the mountain and watch the sunrise tomorrow morning. So they wanted to come with us. I said I'll call you and ask for your permission. If you agree, I'll promise them to stay. If you don't agree, I'll send them down the mountain and let them take a car home. Sisterly thought for a while and said with a hearty smile, if they want to watch the sunrise, then let them stay. If it's only the two of them, I won't feel at ease. But with Mr. Fong, I believe you can take good care of them. I'll take good care of them, Fong Yen promised. Fong Yen, thank you, Sisterly said gratefully. It's nothing. Anyway, there are other students to take care of. Jiang Qin is also my student. Yes, Sisterly answered. Fong Yen, I'm sorry. You didn't do me wrong. Fong Yen smiled. You just love your daughter too much. Yes, Sisterly said. As a mother, how can I not love my child? After hanging up, Fong Yen looked at Jiang Qin, who was looking at him with a worried face, and said, Your mother agreed. Really? Jiang Qin had an incredulous look on his face as he asked, You really agreed? He really agreed. Why did she agree? Jiang Qin asked in confusion. Because I believe in her, and she believes in me, Fong Yen said with a smile. Jiang Qin shook his head and said, I don't understand. She really didn't understand. If her mother believed in Fong Yen, why would she chase Fong Yen out of the house? It's my turn. It's my turn, Yuan Lin said. She dialed her mother's number, said a few words, and handed the phone to Fong Yen. Fong Yen took the phone, and before he could speak, a pleasant woman's voice came from the phone. Is this teacher Fong Yen? I know you. Yuan Lin said she wants to watch the sunrise at Shisha Mountain. So please help take care of her. I will, Fong Yen promised. Thank you. I'll treat you to a meal when I have the chance, the woman said warmly. You're too polite, Fong Yen said with a smile. After hanging up, Fong Yen began to doubt the authenticity of all this. Could Yuan Lin have deliberately dialed a number and asked someone to pretend to be her mother to talk to him? However, from the woman's voice, she didn't sound like a liar at all, because a liar didn't have that kind of gentle and calm temperament. Since Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin's families had agreed, Fong Yen didn't object to them spending the night at Shisha Mountain. Fong Yen walked in front with 2 toolboxes, leading the way, while Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin walked behind with their drawing boards on their backs. Not far behind the 3 of them, a couple wearing sun hats followed them at a moderate pace. They were leisurely taking photos, but from time to time, they would look at the 3 of them. Chapter 119. The moon was round and full, and the stars dotted the sky. The sky was high, but it seemed to be close at hand. As long as one stretched out his hand, he could pluck the brightest star and send it to his lover. Jiang Qin stretched out his small hand, wanting to pluck a star, but his hand was empty. There was still a long distance between ideal and reality. Jiang Qin smiled bitterly. Yuan Lin looked at her profile and said, Sweetheart, are you unhappy? We all stayed. We live on the top of Shisha Mountain. We live in the same hotel as Fong Yen. We can see the night view of Shisha Mountain from the balcony, and we can get up early tomorrow to watch the sunrise with them. Sweetheart, why are you still unhappy? I'm not unhappy, just a little disappointed, Jiang Qin said. Why? Yuan Lin asked. I thought that I would be a little different from him. In fact, in his eyes, I am the same as you. We are both students. In other words, we are both children, Jiang Qin said. I am quite happy that he is willing to help me call my mom. But after thinking about it carefully, I am very sad. The reason why he called my mom so calmly is that he has no selfish motives. He feels that he has no intimate relationship with me at all. He believes in himself and my mom believes in him. They trust each other, and my feelings don't matter. Is that so? Yuan Lin thought seriously. It was exactly the same as what Jiang Qin thought. She smiled and said, Sweetheart, don't you think you are thinking too much? We are just students. Who knows what will happen in the future? Yes, you are thinking too much. Jiang Qin sighed. I can't not think about it. Why can't I think about it? Because uncle is very popular, Jiang Qin said with some annoyance. Exactly. I want to compete with you, Yuan Lin said with a giggle. Don't you dare, Jiang Qin said threateningly. Then the two girls laughed together. The hotel was built on the edge of the cliff. Standing on the balcony gave people a feeling that their bodies were suspended in the air. He could enjoy the cool breeze of the mountain stream and the bright moon above his head. The beautiful scenery on a good day did not disappoint the reputation of the Canvas Moon Hotel. Boys and girls lived separately, two to a room. Since one student was absent, there were exactly 20 rooms for the 40 students. Fang Yan booked another room for Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin. The two girls were quite stubborn and insisted on paying for their own rooms. Fang Yan knew that Yuan Lin was a rich woman, so he didn't argue too much with them. Fang Yan lived alone in a room, which was quite comfortable. After taking a shower, he sat on the balcony and made himself a cup of Longjing tea. Enjoying the breeze and admiring the scenery, it was a happy and harmonious life. Dong dong. There was a knock on the door. Fang Yan lived in room 309. During the meal, he specifically told all the students his room number, so that if they encountered any problems, they must go to room 309 to discuss it with him. They must not act on their own. They were outside and they lived on the mountain. As the only teacher leading the team, Fang Yan had a great responsibility. If something happened to the students, he would have to bear the consequences as a teacher. Fang Yan walked over to open the door, and his heart suddenly trembled. Qin Etian stood at the door with a smile. Maybe because she had just taken a shower, she had changed into a set of snow-white casual sportswear. Because the conditions of the hotel were simple, there was no hair dryer for every customer. So her hair was still a little moist, but it was still soft and draped over her shoulders. Fang Yan blocked the door and asked, "Classmate Qin Etian, what's the matter?" Looking at Fang Yan's actions, Qin Etian frowned slightly and said, "Fang Yan, you don't want to let me in?" "It's not that I don't want to. I'm too tired today, and I'm going to rest. If there's nothing else, go back and rest early. I still have to get up early tomorrow morning to watch the sunrise." "You still don't want to let me in?" Qin Etian chuckled. "Fang Yan, what are you afraid of?" "What?" Fang Yan was like a rabbit whose tail had been stepped on. He said angrily, "What am I afraid of? What do I have to be afraid of?" "Then why won't you let me in? I'm a student, and you're my teacher. I came to talk to you about something very important, but you're blocking the door in fear. Fang Yan, are you feeling guilty?" Fang Yan could only move aside and said, "What do you want to talk to me about?" Qin Etian walked past Fang Yan and went straight to the rattan chair on the balcony to sit down. Looking at the steaming Longjing tea, he said, "It seems that you don't plan to sleep so early." "I'll sleep after drinking this cup of tea," Fang Yan said with an awkward smile. "I'm used to drinking a cup of green tea before going to bed." "What a coincidence. I also have such a habit," Qin Etian said. Thus, Fang Yan had to make another cup of Longjing tea and send it to Qin Etian. Qin Etian's body softly lay down on the rattan chair, his eyes admiring the undulating mountains in the distance. He did not make a sound for a long time. "Classmate Qin Etian?" "Shoo!" Qin Etian made a shushing gesture. Fang Yan was hurt. "You liar. Didn't you say you wanted to talk to me about something very important? Now you don't even let me speak." Fang Yan sat across from Qin Etian. Just like her, his body was lying down in the most comfortable position. He looked at the distant moon and black mountains, emptied his mind, and instantly fell into a trance. He had to admit that this feeling was quite great. Some people enjoyed the tranquility, while others were extremely restless. Zhang Guodong was in the room squeezing a new pimple on his face when his underlings, Chen Tao and Liang, pushed open the door and walked in. "Zhang, you called us over for a program?" Liang asked with a smile. Zhang Guodong wiped the blood on his face with a tissue and said, "Go out for a walk. Who can sleep so early?" "Didn't Fang Yan tell everyone not to go out at night?" Chen Tao said. "Fang Yan?" Zhang Guodong sneered. "What the hell is he? What does he say? Why do we have to listen to him?" "But it's so late. There's nothing fun on the mountain, right?" Chen Tao said. How do you know there's nothing fun if you haven't gone out yet? Zhang Guodong said. Didn't we hear about it during dinner? There's a tiger leaping gorge nearby. When the moon is bright at night, we might be able to see the tiger leaping gorge. The three of us are rich people, so we might be able to see it. But the waiter also said that the tiger leaping gorge is a dangerous place, and it's easy to encounter danger. Zhang Guodong was angry. He kicked Chen Tao's knee and scolded, Chen Tao, are you scared of that little bastard Fang Yan? If you don't dare to go, Li Yang and I will go. You stay here and flatter Fang Yan. Let's see if he will give you a certificate of merit at the end of the year. Chen Tao quickly apologized and said with a smile, Zhang, I didn't mean that. Li Yang and I aren't afraid of anything. We're just worried about Zheng's safety. I'm safe, Zhang Guodong said angrily. Cut the crap. If you want to go, then come with us. If you don't, then get lost. Don't make me sick of you. Go. Whoever doesn't go is a coward. Chen Tao patted his chest and said. The three of them had a serious discussion. Then, they sneaked out of the room with their flashlights and other night equipment. What Zhang Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao didn't notice was that when they walked out of the Moonview Hotel, a couple also walked out of the 100 Flowers Valley Hotel next door and followed them from a distance. The bustling scene during the day became quiet and mysterious at night. There were some places with dense foliage that looked dark, and it made people feel a little scared. Li Yang and Chen Tao looked at each other and felt scared. Li Yang said, Zhang, this road is too dark. I'm afraid we'll get lost. Yeah. Why don't we come back tomorrow? Chen Tao added. Zhang Guodong was also scared, but he was the one who suggested going to Tiger Leaping Gorge. He braced himself and said, We're already here. We have to go and see. Are you scared? If you're scared, you can go back first. Li Yang and Chen Tao hurriedly said that they weren't scared. How could they be scared? They had been to a graveyard before. At that moment, a pheasant jumped out of the grass. The three of them screamed and turned to run. Ah! As soon as they turned around, they screamed even louder, because behind them, there were two black shadows that had followed them out of nowhere. The two black shadows just stood there quietly. They didn't speak or make any sound. They were like lonely ghosts or bloodthirsty ghosts from the depths of the forest. Plop! The three of them suddenly turned around and stopped. Chen Tao couldn't react in time, so he staggered and fell forward. He accidentally slipped and fell at the feet of the two black-clothed figures. After letting out another scream of fright, his hands and feet moved together as he desperately retreated backwards. Let's go. The black shadow pointed forward and said emotionlessly. Go where? Zhang Guodong asked with a trembling voice. This time he was really scared and couldn't pretend anymore. Tiger Leaping Gorge, the black shadow said. We're not going. We don't want to go anymore. Li Yang said anxiously. We're going back. I'm afraid it's not up to you now, the black shadow said with a sneer. If we don't want to go, then we don't want to go. Why must we listen to you? Zhang Guodong shouted to boost his courage. Besides, he also hoped that someone would hear his voice and come to save him. The black shadow jumped high and kicked Zhang Guodong in the chest. Zhang Guodong let out a groan. His body flew into the air and fell toward the cliff beside the mountain path. Chen Tao and Li Yang were scared out of their wits. They didn't care about Zhang Guodong's life anymore. The two of them ran toward the depths of the forest. The two black shadows moved at the same time and rushed in front of them in an instant. Li Yang and Chen Tao followed Zhang Guodong's trajectory and rolled away. They were truly brothers in trouble. Chapter 120. The autumn wind caressed his face, and he closed his eyes to sleep. Of course, Fang Yan didn't dare to really fall asleep. There was a charming little beauty sitting next to him. This girl was so scary that he had to be vigilant against her at all times. If she did something inappropriate while he was asleep, or cooked the rice into cooked rice, it would be too late for him to cry. Who could he reason with at that time? Knock, knock, knock. At this moment, someone knocked on the door of Fang Yan's room hurriedly. Fang Yan and Qin Etian suddenly woke up from their drowsy state. They looked at each other and Qin Etian said, It's said in the book that when you are with the person you like, even if you don't do anything, you will still be happy. Turns out that it's true. Ignoring Fang Yan's speechlessness, Qin Etian stretched her arms and looked at the cold Longjing tea on the table. Thank you for the tea. I'm really going to bed now. Fang Yan was speechless when he heard Qin Etian's words. With that, he stood up and prepared to go back to his room to rest. Huang Haoran stood at the door of Fang Yan's room. When he saw that the person who opened the door for him was the Rosefinch campus belle, Qin Etian, his pupils swelled and his mouth opened, forgetting what to say. Go in. Qin Etian took the initiative to greet Huang Haoran, and then walked towards his room with a yawn. Fang Yan's throat was dry. He finished the tea in front of him in one breath. He looked at Huang Haoran, who was still standing at the door in a daze, and asked, Haoran, what's the matter? Huang Haoran came to his senses and said hurriedly, Mr. Fang, I just went to check the room and found that Zheng Guodong, Liang, and Chun Tao are missing. Missing? Fang Yan frowned. Only these 3 guys? Yes, it was just the 3 of them. I thought only Qin Etian. The others were in the room. Huang Haoran was furious when he mentioned Zheng Guodong, Liang, and Chen Tao. During the class dinner tonight, Teacher Fang Yan repeatedly reminded them that the road was slippery at night, so they shouldn't go out casually to avoid any unexpected dangers. Have a good rest tonight. Tomorrow morning, everyone will gather together to watch the sunrise on first-line television. Fang Yan was worried that everyone would not abide by the rules, so he specially instructed Huang Haoran to patrol at night. If someone breaks the rules, he or she will be punished by deducting credits. Everyone else followed the rules seriously, but the 3 of them ignored teacher Fang Yan's words, ignored the class rules, and sneaked out. Have you called them? Fang Yan asked. Before leaving for the trip, for everyone's convenience, Fang Yan asked someone to register all the students' mobile numbers in advance. This was so that they could reconnect if they accidentally got separated. I did. Huang Haoran's expression became even more furious. They didn't answer on purpose. Didn't answer? Fang Yan couldn't sit still. Did they say where they were going? I don't know. Huang Haoran shook his head. If they did, they wouldn't tell me. Fang Yan agreed. Zhang Guodong, Liang, and Chen Tao formed an independent small circle, and their relationship with the other students in the class was not very harmonious. Before he came, there were some boys who were willing to hang out with them, thinking that it was very cool to be around them. After he came, those boys suddenly realized that Zhang Guodong, Liang, and Chun Tao were actually quite selfish and childish and began to slowly alienate them. Especially after Fang Yan became more and more famous in the school and became more and more popular, there were now no students in the entire Rosefinch Secondary who were willing to interact with them. Now, in the class and the school, they really didn't like each other and were hated by everyone who saw them. It was because of the resentment that they hadn't vented that they insisted on not changing classes. Fang Yan thought for a few seconds and said, Haoran, you stay in the hotel and look after everyone. Don't let anyone else go out. I'll go out and look for them. No matter how Zhang Guodong, Liang, and Chun Tao's characters were, they were still students of Rosefinch Secondary, and they were students in his class. No matter how Fang Yan thought of them, he had the responsibility and obligation to ensure their safety when they went out. Mr. Fang, should we mobilize everyone to look for them together? The more people there are, the easier it is to find them, Huang Haoran reminded. Please don't, Fang Yan said. We're on the mountain, not in the city. There are landslides and cliffs everywhere on the mountain. It's easy to see the road during the day, so there's no need to worry about any danger. But it's dark at night, so it's easy to get into trouble. I can't let everyone take the risk with me. But you're alone? Have you forgotten? Fang Yan patted Huang Haoran's shoulder and comforted him. I'm a peerless master. Fang Yan ran to the front desk of the hotel and asked the receptionist if she had seen the 3 boys go out. The receptionist nodded and said that she had seen them. She had also heard them talking about going to Tiger Leaping Gorge. She wanted to remind them, but a phone call came in and delayed her for a moment. Then they disappeared. Tiger Leaping Gorge? Fang Yan's expression changed. He knew about Tiger Leaping Gorge. It was a big rock between two adjacent peaks that stood opposite each other. Legend had it that during a full moon, it was possible to see a tiger jumping from one side of the cliff to the other rock. Of course, only those who were fated to see it would be able to see it. Those who weren't fated to see it wouldn't be able to see it. However, Tiger Leaping Gorge was a long distance away, and the mountain was steep. So where did they go? How long have they been gone? Fang Yan asked. The receptionist looked back at the clock on the wall and said, "Almost an hour." "Thank you." Fang Yan thanked her and quickly ran outside. Zhangxia Mountain had just been developed, so many facilities were not perfect yet. Apart from the main facilities that had streetlights, some of the auxiliary mountain paths had no streetlights. Therefore, the lush greenery during the day turned into a ghastly place at night. Fang Yan had to slow down in places where the moonlight couldn't reach. Although he had bragged to Huang Haoren that he was a peerless master, he didn't know Qinggong. Fang Yan looked around as he ran, trying to find Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chun Tao. If nothing had happened to the three of them, he should have been able to spot them immediately. Fang Yan didn't find any traces of Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Chun Tao all the way to Tiger Leaping Gorge. Could it be that they didn't come to Tiger Leaping Gorge? If they didn't come here, where did they go? Fang Yan was burning with anxiety. Where the hell did these three little bastards run off to? Fang Yan took out his phone and called Zheng Guodong again. But the call still couldn't be connected. Damn it! Fang Yan cursed angrily. At that moment, Fang Yan suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. His muscles tensed up, and his hair stood on end. Danger! Fang Yan's legs separated in a straight line, and he did a 180-degree split, instantly shortening his body by more than half. Whoosh! A cold light flashed over his head, almost cutting off half of his head. Fang Yan thought to himself, he's trying to take someone's life. He used one hand to support himself, and his body leaped high into the air. His long legs fiercely kicked toward the flashing silver light. Eagle body bow kick. Black Shadow didn't expect Fang Yan's reaction to be so fast, and his counterattack to be so fierce. He had just swung his saber, and he had already made a series of dodging and counterattacking moves. It was simply dazzling. He was already surprised that his first slash missed. He knew that this teacher knew some martial arts. He had injured Wu Ren's student and defeated the coach of Glory Martial Arts School. But they were assassins. Professional assassins. How could killing and performing be on the same level? Seeing his target kick toward his chest, Black Shadow swung his saber diagonally, preparing to cut off a section of his ankle or cut off a piece of flesh from his calf. Fang Yan's straightened leg suddenly bent and retracted it at a 90-degree angle. After he avoided the diagonal slash, his long leg stretched out 180 degrees and suddenly bounced. Bang! Black Shadow grunted. His chest was hit, and his body retreated in a sorry state. Straight kick, bow kick, and straight kick. Because Fang Yan's speed was too fast, and he calculated every possible counterattack move of his opponent. With one hit, the Black Shadow had almost no power to counterattack. Crack! Only then did Fang Yan's body land on the ground. His ability to stay in the air was amazing. Black Shadow's body finally stood firm. Moreover, there was a slightly thinner Black Shadow beside the Black Shadow. Turned out that they weren't alone, but in a team of two. Who are you? Fang Yan shouted coldly. He was already sure that this was a trap specially designed for him. Who was it that hated him so much that he wanted to take his life? Zheng Guodong, Li Yang, and Qin Tao? Could it be that they hired assassins to deal with him? Couldn't be. How could they be so stupid and crazy? What if it wasn't them? What kind of role did they play in the middle? It was a mess of thousands of things. Monster, the taller figure said coldly. Playing tricks, Fang Yan said sarcastically. I respect the heavens and the gods. I've never paid any attention to the likes of little demons and monsters. Trash like you can only hide in the dark and ambush people when they aren't paying attention. You die as soon as you see the light. What can you do? Thus, the two Black Shadows in the dark became unusually angry. They were practically furious. The way they looked at Fang Yen was as if they wanted to burn him to ashes. "We, the monster group, have never been humiliated like this," the shorter figure said. Because the black hood covered their faces, Fang Yen couldn't see their real faces. It wasn't until she spoke that Fang Yen realized she was a woman. "Today, I'll let you have a taste of my little goblin methods," the taller man said angrily. "To die in the hands of us monsters, consider it a blessing from your previous life," the taller man said angrily. "Next year, today will be your death anniversary," the taller man said. "Are they really monsters?" Fang Yen was shocked. Chapter 121. 10 Steps to Kill a Man, 1,000 Miles Unstoppable. When the matter was done, he brushed his clothes and left, hiding his identity and name. Li Bai's poem, The Way of the Gallant, was originally written about those hermit swordsmen who were chivalrous and liked to fight for the sake of the people. Later, the assassin organization felt that these words were too cool and domineering. Moreover, the phrase brushing one's robe and hiding one's body and name when one is done was clearly used to describe the profession they were engaged in. Therefore, the assassins, dressed in a special black professional suit, deliberately chose to recite a few lines of tang or song poems before they went out to kill on a dark and windy night. It did give people a feeling that the overall quality of the assassin industry had improved a lot. Later on, with the development of internet technology and genetic technology, only a strand of hair or a single cell was needed to search through the global database. This included the number of times you peed on your bed when you were a child, and whether you peeked at your neighbor's little sister while she was bathing. At this time, "When things are done, I will brush my clothes and go into hiding" had become empty words, a beautiful wish. In the information age, most assassins had a record. Only an extremely small number of top-notch or extremely secretive experts would not have their information known by the outside world. Even the most powerful spies and intelligence organizations in the United States found it difficult to peek at their true colors. The monsters were a famous assassin group in the world of assassins. The girl was called Little Goblin, and the boy was called Old Monster. The two of them were lovers. Whether it was killing one person or a group of people, the two of them would appear at the same time. Meng would never leave Zhao, Zhao would never leave Meng, and they would never separate. Therefore, when they were hired, it was equivalent to hiring two top-notch assassins at the same time. Moreover, the two of them had been working together for many years and had a tacit understanding of each other. They would often come up with strange moves. Even if they encountered opponents who were stronger than them, they could still turn defeat into victory. There were almost no defeats. This was the first time Fang Yen had come into contact with them, and it was also the first time he had heard of the famous monsters. However, if an expert didn't make a move, one would know whether or not he was an expert. The two of them stood in tacit agreement, with the woman in front and the man behind. The petite woman stood on the left side of the tall man. She was able to maintain the advantage of being the first to attack, but not block the smooth acceleration of the man behind her. If that was all, it would be hard for Fang Yen to pay attention to him. Their positions actually coincided with the Taiji's wind power acupoint. Only when the wind blows can the water rise. Wind brings forth water. Tai Chi, I am the Tai Chi. Could he be a Taiji disciple? Fang Yen thought to himself. "Kill!" the old monster shouted. Although he was standing in the back row, he held the important position of the group spokesperson. If he said kill, they would kill. If he said run, they would run. Of course, the former was more common, and the latter had yet to appear. "Are you going to make a move now?" Fang Yen waved his hand to stop them. "That's not what they show on TV." The monster duo looked at each other. The little goblin asked in a sharp voice, "Do you have any last words? Say it all at once. Although I can't promise that I'll help you get the message out." In the movies and TV shows, before killing someone, the bad guys will sneer 3 times and say, "I want you to die knowing." Then, he explained clearly why he wanted to kill and who sent him to kill. He explained everything clearly. "I'm going to die soon. You can't let me die unjustly, right? Tell me, why do you want to kill me? Who sent you to kill me?" Fang Yen felt that it was a waste to die like this. He couldn't be a muddle-headed ghost. He had to be a clear-headed ghost. The little goblin and the old monster felt like vomiting blood. You're going to die soon. Who has the patience to talk nonsense with you? Do you think this is a movie? The opportunity to kill was fleeting. For them, a dead person was the safest. Only a dead person could keep his mouth shut. You don't say it because you don't dare to. Fang Yan sneered. What? You're not confident that you can kill me today? You're worried that I'll leave here alive to take revenge on the mastermind? That's right. That's my plan. Next time, don't say things like, this day next year will be your death anniversary. I've read so many novels. Anyone who said that was killed by the person they wanted to kill. The old monster was furious. He roared, Fang Yan, you dare to bully me? Kill. Before the word kill left his mouth, the little goblin had already rushed out. This was tacit understanding. People often used the inelegant phrase, I know you're going to shit before you even lift your butt, to describe the tacit understanding between two people. For the little goblin and the old monster, they could indeed achieve this kind of close cooperation. The little goblin was short and her body was wrapped in a black suit. If it wasn't for the bright moon in the sky, it was almost impossible to catch her movement. Even with the moonlight and starlight, it was still not daytime. She was good at taking advantage of the blind spots of the eyes. Her eyes could not catch up with the speed of her movements. Her figure flashed twice and she had already rushed to the side of Fang Yan. Only then did she reveal the thin blade hidden on the back of her wrist. The cold and sharp blade went straight for Fang Yan's neck. Whoosh, almost silently, the blade cut at a tricky angle towards the main artery of Fang Yan's neck, which was particularly eye-catching in the eyes of the little goblin. At the same time, the old monster also moved. His toes touched the ground and his body had already jumped high with the help of the rebound force. He threw a punch straight at Fang Yan's face with the force of thunder. One attacked from the front, the other attacked from the side. One was soft and strange, the other heavy and invincible. Two kinds of strength and two styles attacked at the same time. If one was a little careless, one would be seriously injured, or even both would die under the heavy punches and sharp blades. Mandarin ducks playing in the water. This was the name given by the old monster and the little goblin to their first coordinated attack. This was the appetizer of their fight with others, a set of soft and sweet killing moves that could easily reap lives. Wolves in front and tigers behind, taking a walk in the mountains. Fang Yan naturally spread his feet. The tip of his left foot quickly drew a circle in front of his body. His body was relaxed like a sauna, his hands in front and back. His posture was weird like a drunkard. The blade arrived first. Fang Yan's wrist turned, and his soft arm stuck to the little goblin's wrist. The little goblin used strength, and Fang Yan used strength. The little goblin used strength again, and Fang Yan used strength again. The more strength the little goblin used, the more she found that the blade was not under her control. Whoosh! Blood splattered. However, it was not Fang Yan's body that was hurt. Although the blade was still pinched between the little goblin's hands, Fang Yan had controlled her hands. Her blade made a long cut on her cheek, which was wrapped in black cloth. The black cloth split, and dark red blood flowed out crazily. The little goblin covered the wound on her cheek, and took 3 steps back, as if she had seen a ghost. Strong control. Her opponent had actually clearly guessed the development of each of her moves, and had defeated her with techniques that were even more exquisite than hers. Who was he? The wind from the fist arrived. Fang Yan straightened her wrist, and her palm pushed out with an all-encompassing force. Boom! Fang Yan's palm blocked the old monster's fist. One was as hard as iron, and the other was as soft as cotton. One was as iron in fire, and the other was as ice in water. Ice and fire were incompatible, and there was a crackling sound. This was a real move and also a fake move. The real move was because of the fierce strength of the two's fists. The fake move was because they were only using this move to measure the opponent's strength, and the killing intent was not obvious enough. The old monster's fist was still pressed against Fang Yan's palm, but his fist had turned into a claw, and his wrist moved quickly, and the lucky grappling hand directly grabbed the pulse of Fang Yan's wrist. As long as he grabbed it, Fang Yan's body would immediately lose the ability to move. The little goblin was waiting on the side, ready to attack at any time, and Fang Yen would definitely die. Fang Yen couldn't help but smile. "I'm also good at this move," Fang Yen said. The lucky grappling hand was one of the 3 major grappling techniques of Tai Chi. The Fang family's Tai Chi used the lucky grappling hand. When he was very young, he began to practice turning hands with the old drunkard, and they made a bet that whoever won would win $1 from the other party. In the beginning, Fang Yan's pocket money was all won by the old drunkard. Later, as he grew older and became more and more proficient in this move, the two of them became evenly matched, and the winning and losing ratio was 50-50. When the heart of Tai Chi appeared, he could move his heart at will, and his palms were connected. When he turned hands with the old drunkard again, he won more than he lost. Of course, at that time, the old drunkard was no longer in his peak state, and he was no longer in the mood to turn hands with him. Thus, on this night with the bright moon in the sky, on this dangerous mountain peak, a dazzling scene appeared. The old monster's claws desperately tried to grab Fang Yan's wrist, while Fang Yan's right hand turned into a claw to grab the old monster's wrist while avoiding the old monster's grasp. Their hands seemed to be glued together by rubber honey, and it was difficult to separate them. They flew up and down as fast as lightning. Whoosh! The old monster was still a beat too slow, and Fang Yan's thumb suddenly pressed on the Mingmen acupoint on his wrist. The old monster's body went numb, and he lost the ability to move. The little goblin was anxious, and he attacked again with his knife. Fang Yan grabbed the old monster's wrist with one hand and pushed his body toward the little goblin's knife. Hiss! The little goblin couldn't retract his knife in time, and the knife cut a long wound on the old monster's back. Dong, dong, dong. The little goblin took 3 steps back, and he didn't dare to attack again. "Who the hell are you?" the little goblin shouted. Her voice was originally sharp, as if she was arguing with someone while pinching her throat. "With the hostage in hand, the world is mine." Fang Yan grabbed the old monster's wrist and said with a smile, "You learned some Tai Chi Kung Fu, and now you want to be an assassin. Are you going to kill me? Do you have the ability to kill me?" Fang Yan knew that the little goblin and the old monster wouldn't answer his difficult questions, so he said, "Now let's play a quick game. I ask a question, and you immediately tell me the answer or else." Fang Yan thought for a moment and said, "I'll break one of his fingers." First question, where did you learn Tai Chi? Crack! As soon as Fang Yan finished speaking, the sound of a finger breaking was heard. The little goblin was angry, and the old monster was about to cry. They didn't even have time to answer. How could he break someone's finger? "Sorry, I was too nervous." Fang Yan apologized awkwardly and said with embarrassment. Chapter 122. If the little goblin and the old monster were not hostages, the little goblin and the old monster would have been swearing at each other. The hand belonged to the old monster, and the one answering the question was the little goblin. "What did it have to do with you? Why are you so nervous? We are the ones who should be nervous, okay?" Fang Yan waved his hand, indicating that the previous time did not count. He held the Mingmen acupoint on the old monster's wrist with one hand, and grabbed the 5 fingers of the old monster's right hand with the other. "Come on, the previous time does not count. Let's continue the game. First question, where did you learn Tai Chi?" The little goblin looked at the old monster, as if he wanted to say something. Crack! Fang Yan exerted force on his fingers and broke another one of the old monster's fingers. Because Fang Yan exerted too much force this time, the old monster's fingers were almost broken at a 90-degree angle. Even though the old monster had been through hundreds of battles, he still could not bear the pain. He gritted his teeth and groaned. "What are you doing?" the little goblin roared. He moved his right foot forward, as if he was ready to attack at any time. "You did it on purpose." "Yes, I did it on purpose this time," Fang Yan said honestly. "I didn't explain the rules clearly just now, so I'll add a few more. After I ask the question, the person who answers the question must not hesitate or waste any time. The two of you must not talk to each other, not even through eye contact, Who knows if there are any chips implanted in your eyes that allow you to send messages through eye contact or something? You didn't explain the rules clearly. Why did you break his fingers? The little goblin said angrily. Why should someone else bear the responsibility for your mistake? Fang Yen sneered. He looked at the little goblin and said, You are assassins, not childish kids. Don't you know this better than me? Now all of you are in my hands. Everything I say is the law. Everything I do is the law. It doesn't matter if it's my fault or not. If I say it's your fault, then it's your fault. Did you tell me the rules when you killed me? I don't think so. The little goblin wanted to say something but stopped. She really couldn't refute Fang Yan's words. If they had succeeded just now, Fang Yan would have been a dead man by now. They wouldn't teach him any rules or play some idiotic game of quick answers. A philosopher in the world of assassins once said, Wasting time is equivalent to slowly committing suicide. Do you understand now? Fang Yan asked with a smile. If you understand, then let's start again. First question, who sent you to kill me? The little goblin opened her mouth but quickly closed it again. This cunning bastard was as cunning as a fox and as treacherous as a coyote. He actually played tricks on them. He actually played interrogation psychology with them. Fang Yan broke the first finger of the little goblin and the old monster when they were defenseless. That was to make them tense and ready to answer any question Fang Yan asked. Because they didn't know why he would do it, and they didn't know when he would do it, they couldn't guard against him, but they had to guard against him. The reason Fang Yan broke the second finger of the old monster was that the little goblin answered the question too slowly and was suspected of making eye contact. Because of the hesitation, because of the pause, the old monster broke a finger. This made the little goblin and the old monster more focused, and they even had the answer on the tip of their tongue. As long as Fang Yan asked another question, they would immediately say the answer he wanted. However, the third question he asked was about the mastermind behind the scene. He suddenly changed the question, and they almost blurted out the answer. Fortunately, they reacted quickly and forcibly held back the answer. If they leaked the buyer's information, they would violate the professional spirit of assassins. Not only would it be difficult for them to establish a foothold in this profession, but they would also be hunted by the organization. The first Assassin's Creed, kill the target. The second Assassin's Creed, never leak the employer's information. The third Assassin's Creed, loyalty to the employer comes first. Fang Yan looked at the old monster in his hands, and then looked at the little goblin's happy eyes in front of him. He couldn't help but feel happy. He said, Do you think I'm very smart? Crack! Fang Yan slowly broke the third finger of the old monster. Fang Yan patted the back of the old monster's hand and said, This is the price for refusing to answer the question. The old monster and the little goblin stared at Fang Yan viciously. They were almost about to explode from anger. Toying. Such words involuntarily popped up in their minds. He was playing with them, playing with their bodies, playing with their feelings. They were assassins. Two long-established assassins were toyed with like this. It had to be said that this was a form of humiliation. You can kill me? The old monster looked at Fang Yan and said, But I can guarantee you that you will be in danger for the rest of your life, and your life will be taken away at any time. Is this a threat? Fang Yan said sarcastically. Even the knives in your hands can't scare me. Do you think your lips can do things that knives can't? What do you want? The little goblin said. We can make a deal. You have no right to make a deal with me. Answer my first question first. Where did you learn Tai Chi? Fang Yan asked again. The little goblin confirmed the content of Fang Yan's question and said in a low voice, We learned from Wen Qingxue for a while. Wen Tai Chi? Fang Yan asked. Wen Tai Chi was a branch of Chan Tai Chi and one of the main branches of Huaxia Tai Chi. Wen Qingxue was a famous Tai Chi master in Huaxia country. He was known as the swallow in the cloud. Fang Yan saw with his own eyes that Wen Qingxue in a white tang suit stepped on the edge of the copper basin with one foot and walked along it. The copper basin was empty, but it did not tilt to one side. Wen Qingxue's posture was like a swallow flying in the clouds. That was why he was known as the swallow in the cloud. Fang Yen looked at the little goblin seriously and said, "Who are you to Enqingxue?" The little goblin did not answer. Fang Yen suddenly remembered a secret and asked in surprise, "You are Wenqingxue's abandoned disciple?" Rumor had it that Wenqingxue had two things when he was young. One was that he had many disciples and the other was that he had many women. One of the disciples fell in love with his favorite lover. Somehow, Wenqingxue found out about this. Wenqingxue was furious and threatened to cripple the two. The disciple and the lover ran away and were never heard from again. One should not wash one's dirty linen in public. Very few people knew about this. Fang Yen also overheard it by accident. Now that he heard the little goblin say that they learned Tai Chi from Wenqingxue, could it be that these two were the lover and disciple that Wenqingxue had chased away? Tai Chi is a martial art that strengthens the body, but you used it to kill people. You can kill bad people, but you even killed people like me. Do you still have a conscience? Assassins work for money. They don't care about good or evil, the old monster said coldly. You sound free and easy, Fang Yen laughed coldly. You still have 2 fingers on this hand. I also have 2 questions to ask. First, who sent you to kill me? The little goblin and the old monster did not answer. Crack. Fang Yen exerted force again and broke the old monster's 4th finger. This hand still has the best finger. I also have one last question, Fang Yen said. Who sent you to kill me? This was the last question and the last chance. If they were still unwilling to answer, then Fang Yen did not mind showing them the violence of a gentleman. I don't know, the old monster said. No one knows. They were contacted through an organization. I am not satisfied with this answer. I have to apologize to you again, Fang Yen said. At this moment, the little goblin rushed toward Fang Yen with the blade in his hand. He looked like he wanted to die together with his lover. Fang Yen grabbed the old monster's wrist and pushed him away. The old monster was his natural shield. He did not believe that the little goblin would dare to attack his lover, the old monster. As long as the old monster did not die, Fang Yen would not have to worry. Soon, Fang Yen realized that he was wrong. The little goblin really attacked the old monster. Moreover, this attack was very fierce and cruel. The blade in her hand was just a disguise. She didn't know when, but she had changed the blade into a long prismatic blade. The long sword slashed at the old monster's arm. Due to the force, the arm that was in Fang Yan's hand was cut off. Chi! Smoke rose around Fang Yen, and a flame flew toward Fang Yen. Fang Yen swung the broken arm to knock away the phosphor stones. When he could see again, he saw the little goblin and the old monster holding hands and jumping into the tiger-leaping gorge. The gorge was unfathomably deep in the mountain wind. Suicide? No, the warrior cut off his arm to survive. After descending a certain distance, a large black cloth suddenly bulged behind them. The black cloth unfolded in the strong wind and turned into a natural parachute. On the little goblin's back was a mini parachute bag. It seemed that there was a reason why they chose the tiger-leaping gorge as their attack point. Fang Yen stood in the gorge and watched them for a long time. He only retracted his gaze when they disappeared from his sight. Raising his bloody arm, Fang Yen sighed and said, "Killers, killers. They have to kill their own hands at the critical moment." Fang Yen thought that they were really cruel. Ordinary people would not have been able to do this. Chapter 123. Zhang Guodong let out a groan. All the bones in his body were in pain, as if they were about to fall apart. However, if they really did fall apart, those bones would no longer be his bones. He might just become a pile of white bones, and it would not be as painful as this. Zhang Guodong's face was on the ground, and his body was lying on the hard rock below him. Just as he was about to turn his body and change into a more comfortable sleeping or sitting position, someone suddenly shouted, "Zhang Guodong, don't move." Zhang Guodong turned around and looked over with the help of the faint moonlight. It was his little friend, Li Yang, who was shouting at him. His expression was very nervous and frightened, as if there was a Cobra King above his head. If he moved his body, he might provoke the Cobra King and cause it to pounce at him. Poisonous snake? Zhang Guodong was most afraid of these soft and slippery animals that emitted a cold aura. He quickly raised his head and looked up. Above him was the bright moon and stars, and there was nothing that was very dangerous to him. Zhang Guodong, don't move. After thinking about Li Yang's words again, Zhang Guodong finally realized a serious problem. He stared at Li Yang and said, "What did you call me just now?" Zhang Guodong. Zhang. Li Yang, in a moment of desperation, directly shouted Zhang Guodong's name. Under his coercion, the fear and avoidance that he had accumulated over a long period of time caused him to change the way he called him, which could better accentuate his low status, Zhang. However, when he thought about how Zhang Guodong was still arguing with him over such a trivial matter, his heart burned with fury. He shouted, "Look at what's next to you. What's next to me?" Zhang Guodong looked to his right and immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. A cliff. Not far from him was the misty, bottomless canyon of Mount Zhangxia. The mountain wind was piercingly cold, and Zhang Guodong's body felt even colder. Their current position was a concave rock formation that extended out from the side of the cliff. When they were kicked down, they were saved by these large rocks. Otherwise, they would have fallen into the canyon and been smashed to pieces. However, if he dared to casually flip it, there was a risk that he might roll out of the groove. Therefore, Li Yang's reminder was timely and crucial. Zhang Guodong thought for a moment and felt ashamed to face Li Yang. He said, "You can call me Zhang Guodong from now on." Li Yang was overjoyed. He thought that this was a blessing in disguise. He had finally become Zhang Guodong's loyal confidant, and his position was more important than Chen Tao's. The smile on his face froze before it could spread, and the joy in his heart disappeared before it could spread. What was there to be happy about in such an environment and such an encounter? What was this bit of good fortune compared to the disaster he had encountered? "Zhang, what do we do now?" Li Yang asked. "How would I know?" Zhang Guodong said gloomily. He didn't even dare to turn around, so what could he think of? "Zhang." "Li Yang." A weak voice sounded. Zhang Guodong and Li Yang followed the voice and finally found Chen Tao, who was hidden by the thick leaves and brambles. Li Yang shouted, "Chen Tao, are you okay? How are you?" "My hand is broken. My hand is broken." Chen Tao cried. "I can't move my hand." "Shut up," Zhang Guodong growled in a low voice. "Why are you crying? What is this place? What if those two people hear us?" Hearing Zhang Guodong mention the two ruthless men in the dark who wanted to kill them, Li Yang didn't dare to speak, and Chen Tao didn't dare to cry anymore. It was too scary. Silence. A long silence. This time, it was Zhang Guodong who broke the silence. "Who wants to hurt us?" Zhang Guodong asked. "Who has such a big grudge against us that they would treat us so cruelly?" Li Tao is narrow-minded. Young Master Zhang stole his girlfriend, so maybe he'll find someone to do this to us. Zhang Kai's also said that as long as there is a chance, he will make us suffer. Last time when we played football in the sports school, Luo Mingjie also threatened us, saying not to let them see us outside the school, or else they would beat us up. And Wang Jun from number 21 High, we don't get along with him either. Linley from number 19 High also has a motive, and the coach from Glory Martial Arts School, didn't he also break one of Zhang's fingers last time? "I asked you who wants to kill us," Zhang Guodong said grumpily. "Why are you mentioning them?" "Boss." Chen Tao finally spoke. "Could be any one of them." Zhang Guodong was very sad. He had always thought that he had friends all over the world, but he didn't expect to have so many enemies. Sigh. Li Yang sighed softly. "Zhang, we have offended too many people in the past. We have to change it in the future," Chen Tao also said. "If we can survive this, I'll definitely turn over a new leaf." "Me too," Li Yang said. "I will apologize to everyone we offended in the past. I will introduce a new girlfriend to Li Tao, give Zhang Kai's a fair chance, and play a friendly match with Luo Mingjie from the sports school. Do you guys think it's Fang Yan who did it?" Zhang Guodong suddenly interrupted Li Yang and asked. "Fang Yan? That's impossible, right?" Li Yang said. "Why would he do that? What good would it do him if he did that? He is our homeroom teacher, he has to take responsibility. Why can't he do that?" Zhang Guodong sneered. Do you think we don't have enough conflicts? We tried to harm him time and time again. Didn't he want to harm us once? But he doesn't have to be so vicious, right? They are trying to kill us. Chen Tao said with a lingering fear in his heart. Moreover, Fang Yan is alone, and there are two men in black. Idiot, why didn't he find a helper? Zhang Guodong retorted. Don't tell me that person in black is Qin Etienne? No. Li Yang and Chen Tao denied at the same time. Zhang Guodong wanted to look up at Li Yang and Chen Tao's expressions, but he couldn't move because of the environment. You two, don't tell me you like Qin Etienne? Li Yang began to cry out in pain, as if he was in great pain. Chen Tao cried again, and he cried miserably. My hand is broken, boss, my hand is broken. Zhang Guodong sighed and said, even if you like Qin Etienne, I won't blame you. Who doesn't like him? He thought about it and solemnly promised. If we go back safely this time, we three brothers will go after Qin Etienne fairly. Whoever wins will get it. Li Yang and Chen Tao were overjoyed, and they felt that they had a goal in life. It must be Fang Yan, Zhang Guodong said fiercely again. This guy is too tolerant. After we set him up last time, he acted as if nothing happened and even smiled when he saw us. When we got on the car this morning, he even smiled at me. Now that I think about it, it was a bit meaningful. Why didn't I think about why he smiled at me? Are you sure? Someone asked. Yes, Zhang Guodong said with certainty. Who else could it be if not him? This bastard doesn't make any moves, but when he does, it's a killing move. We can't defend against it, and he knows martial arts. Before Zhang Guodong finished his words, he suddenly looked up. As far as he could see, a black silhouette was leaping towards their location. Wasn't that person Fang Yan, who he suspected? Fang Yan had a rope woven from tree vines tied around his waist, and one end of the rope was tied to the trunk of a big tree. He grabbed the rope and put it down step by step toward the notch where Zhang Guodong was. When he was looking for the rope, he had already heard the conversation between Zhang Guodong, Li Yang, and Chen Tao. He heard the three of them guessing who was behind them, and he really felt a little guilty for them. This time, they had suffered an undeserved calamity. They were implicated by their own actions, which was why they were kicked down. They were just bait to lure him out. But when he heard that these little bastards had offended so many people and done so many shameful things, he felt that it was good to teach them a lesson. When he heard that Zhang Guodong actually suspected him, he had the urge to turn around and go back to sleep. I'm an upright teacher, okay? Would I do something that was tasteless and would bring trouble to myself? Do you think I'm as stupid as you? Seeing that Fang Yan had come to save him, Li Yang was overjoyed and shouted, Mr. Fang, is that you? Are you here to save us? Fang Yan almost missed his step and hit his head on the cliff. Please use your knees to think. If I'm not here to save you, am I here to kill you? Chen Tao cried again and shouted, Mr. Fang, save me. My hand is broken. My hand is broken. Shut up, Fang Yan shouted. Lower your voice. Chen Tao, you shut up. Don't attract those men in black again. Li Yang also reprimanded. Mr. Fang, do you think I'm right? Chen Tao, really shut up. What's right? Fang Yan said snappily. I just think it's annoying when he cries. Fang Yan took the lead and jumped to Li Yang's side. He untied the rattan rope around his waist and tied their bodies together tightly. Then he said to Li Yang, when I take you up, remember to hug me. Hug me tightly. Li Yang understood and quickly put his hands around Fang Yan's neck and put his legs on Fang Yan's waist. The two hugged each other face to face, and there was no gap between them. When it came to life and death, he would not take it lightly. Fang Yan carried the rattan rope and prepared to climb up. He thought about it and untied the rope around his waist and said, I'll tie you behind my back. Chapter 124. Fang Yan tied Li Yang behind him and slowly carried him up with the rattan rope. Then, he went down again and carried Chen Tao up as well. Chen Tao grabbed Fang Yan's arm and cried, Mr. Fang, my hand is broken. My hand is broken. Please save me. I'm dying. Fang Yen touched Chun Tao's arm and asked, "Are you afraid of pain?" "Yes," Chun Tao said. "That's good." As Fang Yen spoke, he held Chun Tao's arm with one hand and pushed and pulled with the other hand. There was a crisp crack sound and Chun Tao's pig-like howl. Chun Tao's hand was fixed. "If you are not very busy, try to see if you can move your arm first," Fang Yen said to Chun Tao, who was screaming with his mouth open. Chun Tao shook his head and cried even more miserably. He said, "Mr. Fang, it's really broken this time. It hurts." Fang Yen saw that Chun Tao did not dare to move. He grabbed Chun Tao's hand and pulled it back and forth. Then he raised it up and waved it like a lucky cat. He said, "It's fixed." Chun Tao opened his eyes and looked at it. It was really fixed. Although it was very painful, his arm and fingers could move freely. It was not like when he was down there, he could not feel them at all. His brain could not command them at all. "Mr. Fang really fixed it. Really fixed it," Chun Tao said happily. No matter what kind of contradiction he had with Fang Yen in the past, or how much hatred he had for him in his heart, at this moment, he was sincerely grateful to Fang Yen. At the critical moment, a man tied a tree vine and pulled you back from a dangerous situation. How could you resist and ignore such help? Liang sat on the ground and looked at Fang Yen, who was treating Chun Tao's arm. Liang's eyes were empty. He didn't know what he was thinking, or if he hadn't woken up from the nightmarish incident that happened tonight. Fang Yen stood up and said to Chun Tao and Liang, "Can you two walk?" Chun Tao stood up and walked a few steps before saying, "Mr. Fang, I'm fine." "I'm fine too," Liang said. "Then let's go back," Fang Yen said. "Go back." Chun Tao and Liang looked at Fang Yen in surprise. "Go back just like that? What about Zhang Guodong? He was still down there and hadn't been rescued." "Mr. Fang, Zhang Guodong is still down there," Chun Tao said anxiously. "Who is Zhang Guodong?" Fang Yen asked. Because Fang Yen didn't lower his voice, Zhang Guodong, who was lying below, heard Fang Yan's words clearly. Hearing that, Fang Yen asked Chun Tao and Liang to go back and completely ignored his existence. He was so angry that he shouted, "Fang Yen, you bastard, you beast, you bastard, you want to kill me. You are using your power to avenge your private grudge. You just want me to die. Fang Yen, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. My father won't let you go, and the police won't let you go." Silence. It was dead silence. In addition to the whistling of the mountain wind and the occasional chirping of birds and insects, Zhang Guodong's shouting got no response from anyone. Gone. Really gone. Zhang Guodong almost collapsed. "Fang Yen, you bastard, you want to kill me, you want to kill me. Liang, you traitor. You are ungrateful. You are not a good thing. Chun Tao, you dare to leave me behind and run away. When I get out, I will make you suffer. I will make you all die a horrible death." Fang Yen stood on the edge of the cliff, looked at the two young students standing in front of him with pale faces, and said, "Now do you see what kind of person he is? I can understand that you didn't know before. Now if you still don't know, it only proves that you are stupid. It doesn't matter if a person is simple or stupid, but if he is stupid, he will hurt others and himself." Chun Tao opened his mouth again and again, but in the end, he couldn't say anything. Liang looked at the bottom of the cliff, and then looked at Fang Yen and said in a weak voice, "Mr. Fang, save him, no matter what, he is your student." "I don't think so," Fang Yen sneered. "I can't be everyone's teacher, but not everyone is worthy of being my student. I have a reputation to cherish, and I have feathers to protect. I am selfless, and I am willing to impart my knowledge to you selflessly. I am also selfish, and I don't want to nail myself to the pillar of shame in history because of a fly." Fang Yen glanced at the bottom of the cliff and said, "I think he is definitely not willing to recognize me as his teacher." Liang and Chun Tao were silent. They understood Zhang Guodong's character, and they also knew what they had done to Fang Yen. If it hadn't happened tonight, the two of them would probably be plotting with Zhang Guodong on how to expel Fang Yen from the school. "However, I will still save him," Fang Yen said. "Thank you, Mr. Fang." Liang said, "You are great. In the past, we really let you down." Mr. Fong, we have done a lot of wrong things. I hope you can forgive. Chun Tao also said with a face full of guilt. I have to save him. Fong Yen smiled bitterly. I brought him out, so I have the responsibility to bring him back. No matter how much I dislike him. You two wait up there for a while. Fong Yen said. Then, he pulled the vine rope again and climbed down to save the guy who was still shouting. The sky had just revealed a touch of white, and the students of Class 9 had already gathered at the entrance of the hotel. When Huang Haoren called the roll, Zhang Guodong and his two King Kong, Li Yong and Chun Tao did not appear, and everyone was used to it. The three of them were the oddities of the school, and usually they never put the rules and regulations in their eyes. Because of their strong background, the teachers of the school could not do anything about it, so they could only let them be. Mr. Fong, Zhang Guodong, Li Yong, and Chun Tao are not here, the rest are all here. Huang Haoren ran to Fong Yen and reported. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin were also among the students, but they were not on the list of Class 9. It's okay, Fong Yen said with a smile. What happened last night was still confidential for the time being, and it could not be known by other students. Zhang Guodong, Li Yong, and Chun Tao were frightened, and it was not easy for them not to go home that night. Now that they were not willing to participate in the activity, it was understandable. At this moment, Li Yong and Chun Tao ran out of the hotel. Chun Tao ran while zipping up his hoodie. The two of them quickly ran to Fong Yen and apologized. Mr. Fong, sorry, we got up late. Everyone looked at Li Yong and Chun Tao strangely. Did something happen to them today? They were not with Zhang Guodong, and they took the initiative to apologize to Mr. Fong Yen because they came late? It was too strange. Fong Yen looked at Li Yong and Chun Tao and asked, Are you okay? It's okay. Chun Tao said. We also want to follow everyone to see the sunrise. Let's go. Let's go to Line Gorge. Fong Yen said with a smile. However, I have a condition. I promise you to go to see the sunrise, and you must help me take care of your own safety. Is that okay? Mr. Fong, don't worry. We will pay attention. Yes, don't mess around. Don't cause trouble for Mr. Fong. Whatever Mr. Fong says, we will do it. Fong Yen waved his hand and said with a smile, Don't be nervous, everyone. I'm just giving you a kind reminder. You enjoy this rare scenery, and I will always be with you. So, with Tangqing leading the team in front and Fong Yen at the back, a group of people walked toward the best scenic spot, Line Gorge. When the dark sky was torn apart, the white of the fish's belly turned into the white of the fish's scales, then the fish's body, then the white became goose yellow became light red, and light red became deep red. A red sun slowly appeared on the horizon of the Grand Canyon. The students exclaimed, and more people took out their mobile phones to take photos. Some people stood together in groups of 3 to 5 and asked other students to help take photos. Everyone was having a good time. Fong Yen stood behind the railing and looked at the scene of the rising sun surrounded by mist. He felt like a seed was germinating and weeds were growing wildly in his heart. A beautiful picture of a red sun rising in the east appeared in his mind. His dantian became hot again, and the heart of Tai Chi, which had been immersed for a while, started to rotate again. Moreover, this time the speed of rotation was even faster, and it was even more forceful. It wasn't as intermittent as before. Instead, it connected into a long, thin line. This long line ran through his whole body, flowing through every meridian and impacting every acupoint in his body. It was numb and itchy, as if he was sunbathing. Fong Yen felt very comfortable, and every pore of his body was in a state of excitement. He had a strong impulse to do a round of Tai Chi on the summit of Shisha Mountain. He thought so, and so he did. He drew a circle with the tip of his foot and held the circle with both hands, stretching his body infinitely. With one foot as the core, he slowly danced along the rotation of the heart of Tai Chi, indomitable spirit, standing in the center, like a boundless elephant. Fong Yen recited the song and held the circle horizontally with both hands. With a flash of inspiration, the Tai Chi will move in all directions. He turned his head slightly, then his waist and arms. His left and right palms flew up and down, and it was hard to see with the naked eye. Just then, an early butterfly landed in the center of his palm. Every blade of grass and every tree had life. Every insect and every fish had spirituality. Fang Yen smiled at the butterfly and then let it move up and down in his palm. He stretched out his hands and shook his arms up and down according to the frequency of the butterfly's flapping wings, rising and falling, borrowing the force of the butterfly. Every time the butterfly gathered its strength and was about to fly, it happened to be offset by his strength. When the butterfly's body fell, it was pushed high into the sky by his rebound force. The green mountains and clear waters were shining, and the sun was shining. Fang Yen, who was dressed in white, was handsome and elegant, like an elegant young master living in seclusion in a deep valley. Chapter 125. Fang Yen opened his palm, and his arm rose and fell up and down. The butterfly was like a boat in the sea, being tossed up and down and unable to escape. He exerted his strength lightly, and his posture was freehand. The man and nature were integrated into one, like a beautiful landscape painting. Look! Yuan Lin pulled the arm of Jiang Qin, who was excitedly taking photos of the red sun, and pointed to Fang Yen not far away and shouted. Jiang Qin turned around, and his eyes lit up instantly. He was immediately fascinated by the scene in front of him. At this time, Fang Yen danced with the wind, and the red light all over the sky enveloped him. He was ethereal like a hidden master or a peerless immortal. So handsome. Yuan Lin's eyes were also full of little stars. Uncle is so handsome. I didn't expect a man who does Tai Chi to be so charming. Jiang Qin was silent and did not answer. He just stared at Fang Yen not far away with burning eyes. Sweetheart, say something. Are you stunned? Yuan Lin grabbed Jiang Qin's arm and said. She hoped that what she said could get Jiang Qin's response and resonance. Jiang Qin's silence made her very disappointed. Not only handsome, Jiang Qin said. His eyes never left Fang Yen. What is that? Temperament, Jiang Qin said. I don't think I'll be able to see such a temperament in any other guy ever again. Yuan Lin thought about it and said with annoyance, It's really annoying. Everyone came out to watch the sunrise together, which was the most exciting thing for Tangqing. Because when everyone came out together, Qin Etienne would also come out. When Qin Etienne came out, he would have the opportunity to watch the sunrise alone with her. Of course, as the famous school hunk in the school, he was embarrassed to show all his happiness on his face. Today, Tangqing deliberately chose a set of white clover sportswear, which made him look outstanding in the crowd, like a dazzling and proud white swan. As soon as he appeared, he immediately attracted the cheers of many girls in the class. Tangqing had always been by Qin Etienne's side. Being able to watch the sunrise with his beloved girl would definitely leave a sweet and deep memory in her heart. Decades later, she could even take it out to drink. Qin Etienne looked at the rising red sun in the Grand Canyon, as if he was stunned by the beautiful scenery in front of him. He did not speak for a long time. Tangqing really wanted to ask someone to take a group photo for them, but he was afraid that it would disturb Qin Etienne's mood, so he couldn't ask. Therefore, Qin Etienne didn't speak, and neither did he. Qin Etienne looked at the scenery in front of him attentively, while Tangqing looked at Qin Etienne attentively. You stand on the bridge and look at the scenery. The person who looks at the scenery is looking at you from the bridge. Tangqing suddenly thought of this poem. At this moment he was deeply moved. Qin Etienne sighed softly, and his line of sight finally moved away from the picture of the rising sun. Nature is really great. Man can conquer nature. It is nothing more than the arrogant delusion of us mortals. Tangqing was overjoyed. He finally waited for the opportunity and said, Qin Etienne, shall we take a photo together? Worried that Qin Etienne would not agree, he added, the other students are taking photos. Okay. Qin Etienne readily agreed. Tangqing waved his hand and shouted, Fang Hong, come and help us take a photo. Fang Hong trotted over and asked, Do you want to use my camera or your mobile phone? Use my mobile phone, Tangqing said. He was worried that if he used someone else's mobile phone or camera, These guys would secretly save a copy of Qin Etienne's photo. They would definitely do so. It should be known that Qin Etienne would not take a photo with anyone easily. Fang Hong took Tangqing's mobile phone and said, "Are you ready?" Tangqing and Qin Etienne turned around and prepared to take a photo with their backs to the red sun. Tangqing thought about it and stood closer to Qin Etienne. He thought about it again and stood closer. He wanted to be closer, but he did not dare to move this time. "Get ready," Fang Hong shouted. At this moment, someone shouted, "Look at Mr. Fang." "Ah, look, it's really Mr. Fang. Teacher Fang is doing Tai Chi. He's so cool." Hearing everyone's voice, Qin Etienne also looked in the direction of Fang Yan. Her eyes were full of affection, and the corners of her mouth were slightly raised, with a heart-warming smile. Fang Hong also wanted to see Teacher Fang Yan do Tai Chi, but since he was entrusted by someone, he must do the things at hand first. So, he shouted, "Tangqing, are you two ready?" Tangqing looked at Qin Etienne's side face and saw that when she stood with him, she turned her head to look at another man seriously and attentively. He saw the joy and obsession in her eyes. How could such a scene be taken? Even if it was taken, it would be a great irony to himself, right? Tangqing waved his hand and said weakly, "For the time being, let's not take photos." It had to be said that this scene was too surprising. Just now, the students of Class 9 took out their cameras and mobile phones to take photos of the red sun and the beautiful scenery of Xixia in the early morning. Now, everyone pointed the camera at Fang Yan, who was doing Tai Chi, and moved the shutter. Click. Even Qin Etienne, who never took photos, took out a special mobile phone, adjusted the focus, and froze the picture of Fang Yan doing Tai Chi. Even some tourists who deliberately stayed at Xixia Mountain to watch the sunrise took out their mobile phones and kept taking photos when they saw Fang Yan, who was an anomaly. Someone said happily, "Xixia Mountain is developing better and better. The last time we came, they didn't specially send people out to do Tai Chi for us. I didn't make a mistake asking you to come here, did I?" Fang Yan was so lost in his own world that he couldn't hear the praises and comments of his friends around him. He didn't even notice that they were taking photos of him. He followed the guidance of the heart of Tai Chi and performed the moves of Tai Chi in his mind. Fang Yan was Tai Chi and Tai Chi was Fang Yan. With the heart of Tai Chi as a medium, he finally became one with Tai Chi again and became a complete ball. He could adjust his breathing and he could look inside his body. Under Fang Yan's waving, the power of Tai Chi in the heart of Tai Chi circulated faster and faster. The stream turned into a stream, and the stream gathered into a river. The river rushed through every meridian and acupoint in his body. There was a mist around Fang Yan, and his body was steaming. The heat and the mist condensed together. Fang Yan's entire body was drenched in sweat, and his clothes were completely soaked. However, his complexion was rosier, and his skin was whiter and more translucent, showing a translucent state. After playing with the butterfly for a while, Fang Yan raised his hands and shouted, "Up!" The colorful butterfly suddenly felt that the heavy binding on its body was lifted. It flapped its wings and flew into the sky. It circled above Fang Yan's head twice, then flew into the distance and disappeared in an instant. Fang Yan drew a circle in front of him with the tip of his foot, and his body slowly retracted. He stood at attention, then gently exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. The practice of Tai Chi made him feel refreshed, and his body felt relaxed and comfortable as if it had been reborn. The fist style ended, but the heart of Tai Chi was still working normally. Although it wasn't as turbulent as before, it didn't break, and it still existed. He knew that after this incident, his heart of Tai Chi had finally been completely activated. Fang Yan was extremely excited. The trip to Mount Xianxia was not in vain. "Mr. Fang, wipe your sweat." Jiang Qin trotted over and handed over the handkerchief he borrowed from Yuan Lin. Yuan Lin wanted to do it herself, but she beat him to it. Fang Yan refused and said, "No need. I'm sweaty all over, and I don't want to ruin your beautiful handkerchief. You can go back to your room and take a bath." "Let me do it." Qin Etienne walked over and took the handkerchief from Jiang Qin's hand. He naturally helped Fang Yan wipe the sweat on his face. Fang Yan was speechless. "Qin Etienne, Can't you get permission from others before you do anything? Jiang Qin was even more speechless. She even felt a little aggrieved. I borrowed the handkerchief from my friend. Why should I give it to you? She even wanted to yell at Qin Etienne, but when she saw Qin Etienne's carefree manner as if everything was supposed to be like this, she couldn't say what she wanted to say. It really took courage to face such an opponent. All right, all right. Fang Yan took the handkerchief from Qin Etienne's hand. I'll do it myself. I'll do it myself. The other students crowded around and praised Fang Yan at the same time. They praised Fang Yan as if he was the only one in the world. Fang Yan said that he was just playing, but he was very happy in his heart. Didn't people live for a face and a mouth? The other tourists also gathered around, wanting to take photos with the Tai Chi performer, Fang Yan. Among them, there were many beautiful tourists who came alone. Of course, Fang Yan's students rejected them on his behalf. They also explained that Fang Yan was just a teacher, not a Tai Chi performer on Shisha Mountain. Only then did they leave with regret. A middle-aged man wearing glasses came over, looked at Fang Yan and said, "Sir, can I have a word with you?" Fang Yan looked at him carefully and said, "I don't know you. Why should I have a word with you? Who are you? What can I do for you?" The middle-aged man laughed and said, "Sir, I'm a talent scout. I saw your Tai Chi performance just now, and I think you are very talented. I want to invite you to shoot a movie." Talent scout? Shoot a movie? Fang Yan looked at the middle-aged man in surprise and asked excitedly, "I just waved my hands casually, and I was chosen by a talent scout? Can I enter the entertainment circle? Join a beauty group, get to know a big star, and casually act in a movie to earn more than $1 billion? Sir." The middle-aged man was speechless. "I think you think too much." Chapter 126. Why am I overthinking it? Fang Yan said angrily. "If others can do it, why can't I?" "Sir, Tang Tianwang is a legend in our entertainment circle. No one has been able to break the record he has created until now. I think I can do it too," Fang Yan said. "Find me a group of beauties and let me join." "Sir, I'm also very good-looking. It's not a problem for me to dress up as a woman." "Sir, are you really a talent scout?" "Yes." "Then you can't see that I have the potential in this area?" "Sir, to tell you the truth," the middle-aged man was on the verge of collapse. "I don't see it. You insulted me like this and you still want to borrow a step from me? I have something very important to talk to you about. Isn't it just filming? You still have the nerve to ask me to be the lead in a movie that can't get $1 billion in the box office?" "Sir, we're not looking for you to be the lead. Well, we want to work with you on some details." "How detailed?" "Shoot some MV scenes." Fang Yan shook his head and said, "No. First, I won't take on movies that aren't big investments. Second, I can't trust you. I know that talent scouts are all on the street. When they see a beautiful girl, they rush up and say, 'Miss, I think you have a lot of potential. Would you like to go back with me to make a movie?' Then they take her to a very remote and dilapidated room for an interview, saying that they want to test your acting skills and comprehension, and then they ask the girl to take off her clothes. You're not trying to sleep with me, are you?" "Sir, we don't have such considerations. Our Huaxing Entertainment is a big company. It's impossible for us to do such a thing." "Who knows?" Fang Yan sneered. "When the time comes, if I'm really deceived by you, I won't be able to answer even if I cry for help. How can I guarantee my innocence?" The middle-aged man knew that he had to tell the truth. He glanced around and said in a low voice, "Sir, I'm actually not a talent scout. I'm Miss Xia's agent. I want to talk to you." "Xia." Fang Yan felt that the name was a little familiar. "I don't know her either." The middle-aged man's face turned ugly and said, "Do you really not know Miss Xia? Stop joking, okay? How could there be someone who didn't know Miss Xia?" "Sir, I personally think that this is a good thing for you. It's a great opportunity for many people. If you can get Miss Xia's appreciation—" "I still don't understand what you mean," Fang Yan said. "You just said that you're a talent scout, and now you say that you're a woman's manager. What are you trying to do? One should be honest, Fang Yan said. You lied to me once, and you want me to believe your lies a second time? All right, I'm very busy. Our conversation ends here. The middle-aged man was anxious. He took out a business card from his pocket and said, Sir, take a look. I'm really Miss Xia Tian's agent. My name is Zhang Wei. It's like this. Miss Xia Tian happened to be shooting at Shisha Mountain today. She saw you performing Tai Chi in the morning light just now. She's very interested in you and wants to talk to you about choosing such a scene in her new song. All right. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, Everyone is so busy. Let's not waste each other's time. You still want to continue lying, and I still have to take the students to breakfast. I'll take your business card. Let's talk next time. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, That's it. Bye. Zhang Wei's face was full of regret as he said, If you change your mind, you can call me at any time. You're thinking too much, Fang Yan said. He was very angry when Zhang Wei said that he was thinking too much. Now, he finally had the chance to take revenge for this despicable act. What? A beautiful voice was full of doubt. A beautiful woman in a white ancient gown asked in surprise, He's not willing? Yes. Zhang Wei said helplessly. I sent him the most sincere invitation, but he still refused. Zhang Wei, you don't have. Is there a problem with your attitude? Xia Tian knew that as she became more and more famous, the temper of the people around her also increased. Because she was kind-hearted and fond of old friendships, she was not willing to reprimand them easily, let alone dismiss them. Therefore, sometimes the attitude of the people around her would cause some people to have some prejudice against her. Miss, how could I do such a thing? How can I not know your temper? Zhang Wei said innocently. I know Miss wants to cooperate with him. My attitude is really good, but he just doesn't want to. Why not? What right does he have? The assistant who was busy putting on makeup for Xia Tian said angrily. Our sister Xia Tian can cooperate with anyone? Sister Xia Tian took the initiative to invite him, but he was not willing. He really doesn't know what's good for him. If I were to go, I would definitely scold him to death. Man, Xia Tian comforted softly. Don't say such things next time. Everyone has their own ambitions, we can't force others. I'm just angry at that person's arrogant attitude, the assistant said with grievance. Xia Tian smiled and asked, Why didn't he agree? At first, I didn't want to expose Mrs. whereabouts, so I said that I was a talent scout and wanted to invite him to film. He refused. That's not true. But his request was too much. What request? If we can discuss it, we can also make up for it. He said that he only accepts movies with large investments. If the box office doesn't exceed 1 billion, don't look for him. Zhang Wei said with a sense of revenge. What? 1 billion box office? Does he think he's Heavenly King Tang? That's right, isn't he overestimating himself? Sister Xia, he can't be a madman, right? It must be. Zhang Wei's words caused the group of people around Xia to explode. All of them attacked and condemned Fang Yan, the guy who had spoken arrogantly. Feng Yuancheng, a famous domestic male star, and the male lead of the ancient costume drama, Divine Furnace, sneered and said, I've been in this circle for 5 or 6 years, and I only dare to say that I'm familiar with it. This guy wants a box office of 1 billion. Does he think he's a superstar? Sister Xia, don't you want to choose the male lead for your new song MTV? If you think it's suitable, I'll go over and act for you. I don't need a single cent. I'll pay for the plane ticket myself. Feng Yuanqing had always admired Xia. This was no secret in the circle. It wasn't strange at all that he wanted to act for Xia's new song MTV. Xia smiled silently and said, Thank you, Remote. If it's suitable, I'll definitely invite you to help me, but that person is really good. The scene of him standing on the top of the mountain doing Tai Chi was really unforgettable. You know, my new song wants to try a classical style. It's just a fancy fist and a show of legs, Feng Yuanqing said. Give me a few days of training and I can also play as well as him. I'll go visit the famous Tai Chi master, Mr. Zheng Longjian, and learn a few moves from him. I'll definitely be stronger than that kid. Xia smiled and said, It's too troublesome to be long distance. This matter will be put aside for now. Since there's no chance, let's talk about it later. Everyone saw that Xia didn't want to talk about this topic anymore. It must have been that man's refusal that made Xia lose face and annoyed her. Thus, the director immediately walked over and said, Xia, I'll show you this scene again. Actually, this scene is very simple. It's just that you and the long distance met at the top of the mountain where the sun rose, and then both sides fought because of a misunderstanding. The long distance pretended to be defeated by you and fell off the cliff. You were very anxious. After Zhang Wei left, Jiang Qin came over and asked, Mr. Fong, who is that person? Why did he look for you? First, he said he was a talent scout looking for me to shoot a movie. Then he told me he was Xia's agent. I sent him away. Fang Yan said. Jiang Qin took the business card and looked at it. He said, It seems that it really says he's Xia's agent. If only it was. I love Xia. However, this person must be lying. How could Xia be here? Is that Xia very famous? Fang Yan asked. He's too famous. Jiang Qin said excitedly. She's definitely the most popular celebrity in China. I love every single one of her shows. By the way, her singing is also very good. She has the nickname of Golden Song Queen. That's why I said it couldn't be her. Forget about her. Let's go eat. After dinner, you guys go back with our car. I'll take them back to school. You guys go home and say hello to your parents. No, Jiang Qin said with a pout. Why not? I'm going to see where you live. I'll go find you when I have time. You're still my tutor. Don't you want to fulfill your responsibilities now? Next time. Fang Yan refused. I still have a lot of things to do today. I brought the students out and I have to bring them back safely. I also have to report to the school leaders, and there are friends waiting for me to receive. Next time, I'll definitely invite you to my house next time. Okay, Jiang Qin said helplessly. I'm telling you I'll definitely go. Definitely. Fang Yan said as if he was promising. At this moment, a strong smell of alcohol came. Burning knives. Even though Fang Yan hadn't tasted this kind of strong liquor for a long time, he could still smell the familiar smell of this liquor. How could there be the smell of burning knives at the top of Xinsha Mountain, which was thousands of meters above the ground, when the morning dew filled the air? Fang Yan followed the smell of alcohol and saw a long-haired man holding a huge bronze wine gourd drinking on a big rock more than 10 meters away. The big man sat cross-legged on the rock, drank a mouthful of strong liquor, and glanced at the sunrise. His posture was arrogant, and his expression was relaxed. It made people feel strange, but also gave people a feeling of grandeur. Chapter 127. Fang Yan's eyes were slightly cold as he said to Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, You two go back to the hotel with them for breakfast. I still have some personal matters to deal with. Jiang Qin didn't notice the danger and wanted to continue to stay with Fang Yan. She asked puzzledly, What else is there? I feel a little uncomfortable. Fang Yan said while holding his stomach. He looked like he was in unbearable pain. Hateful. Jiang Qin said coquettishly. How did the grandmaster of a generation become an unlucky guy with diarrhea in the blink of an eye? Can you maintain a beautiful and lofty image in other people's hearts for a longer time? Of course, in Jiang Qin's view, the current Fang Yan was also very beautiful and lofty. Wasn't reality another kind of beautiful and lofty? Jiang Qin pointed to the front and said, I saw a toilet at the corner over there. You go there quickly. If you come back late, there won't be anything to eat. You guys eat first. Don't wait for me. Fang Yan said with a smile. Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin looked at Fang Yan and laughed as they chased after the 9th class. After a short period of time, they were already very familiar with Fang Yan's students. Even if they weren't familiar, the boys were very attentive to these two little Lolas. The girls also thought they were beautiful and cute. In addition, they were outgoing and sweet talkers, so it was easy for them to get along with the similarly young ninth-class students. When all the students left, the people on the gorge were almost gone. Fang Yen walked toward the slope of the mountain and stood at the bottom of the slope. He looked up at the long-haired man sitting on the big rock and said, "Drinking liquor and watching the sun. It's really carefree and comfortable." The long-haired man raised his head and drank a mouthful of liquor. His throat was trembling. Perhaps it was because he drank too fast or because the liquor was too spicy, but his face suddenly turned red. Poochie. He spat out a mouthful of hot knife in his mouth and wiped the corner of his mouth with his dirty gray sleeve. He looked quite miserable. Fang Yen laughed and pointed at the long-haired man, saying, "You're at most half a kilogram. Why did he have to imitate that old drunkard and pretend to be a drunkard? Listen to my suggestion. Find an image designer to help you redesign your image. The vicissitudes of life and despair are not suitable for you." The long-haired man said angrily, "He used to be my idol. It was still the same now. It's not like I'm gonna choke every time I drink so much. Besides, I'm not here to compete with you in drinking." "Then what are you doing here?" "Murder." "Kill who?" "Kill you." "Why? I was entrusted by someone. You haven't cut your hair for a long time. 2 years, 4 months, and 27 days. Since the day I lost to you, I've been ignoring you. Have you never washed your clothes?" "I changed it and washed it. I washed it and wore it again." The long-haired man was a little embarrassed. It was as if he had done something wrong to Fang Yen. Fang Yen glared and scolded, "Bailey Lu, you liar. You didn't keep your promise. What was the agreement during the game? In this game, no matter who is the loser, before he defeats his opponent again, he can't cut his hair or wash his clothes. Did you do that?" "What can I do?" Bailey Lu retorted with a red face and neck. "What can I do? I can cut my hair, but I don't wash my clothes. They're all rotten. I can smell the stench from 100 miles away. My father is guarding the door with a long spear and won't let me in. What can I do? Can I still wear those clothes? That's something you have to solve. What does it have to do with me? You secretly washed the clothes. That's cheating." "I cheated, but I told you frankly. If it were you, would you be able to do it? You also know how to act shamelessly." "You're framing me." Fang Yen waved his arms and said, "I have nothing to do with your sister, but you said that if there was a chance, I would peep at her bathing. But did I do such a thing? No. Did I want to do such a thing? I never did. You dare to bully my sister." Bailey Lu suddenly jumped up from the big rock and said, "Let's fight again today to avenge the defeat of 2 years, 4 months, and 27 days. Fang Yen on the top of Shensha Mountain will fight to the death." Fang Yen shook his head and sighed, saying, "Today is not the right time to fight to the death. Let's fight another day." "Why not? If we didn't talk so much nonsense at the beginning and fought to the death, it would be exciting and pleasing to the eye. We would show the demeanor of a master. Now you deliberately teased me by talking so much nonsense, which suddenly destroyed the tense atmosphere. Would Shimin Shueishue and Yi Gu Chang talk so much nonsense before the fight?" Bailey Lu thought for a while and said, "No." "Would Dongfang Bubi talk so much nonsense before the fight with Ren Wushing?" Bailey Lu thought again and said, "No." "Who would talk so much nonsense before the fight?" "Who would?" "Hooligans and aunties from the vegetable market." "Are you willing to fight like hooligans and aunties from the vegetable market?" "No." "Then let's go back." Fang Yen waved his hand and said, "Pick a good day next time and we'll fight to the death." Bailey Lu refused and said, "I'm not leaving. Since I'm here, I can't just leave like this. I promised someone that I would kill you. If I leave, you'll definitely brag to others that you defeated a strong enemy with just a few words, that you didn't need to use your hands to fight, and that you'll make a fool of yourself by using your hands. Others will call me a coward. I won't fall for your trick. Am I that kind of person?" Fang Yen was hopping mad. "You are that kind of person." Bailey Lu's face was full of disdain. I challenged you for the first time when I was 17 years old. You said you weren't feeling well today and asked me to come back 3 days later. I just walked out of your house and you let people spread the news that I was defeated by you in one move and had to flee. It's not the first time you've done this kind of thing. Fang Yan's face was full of awkwardness and said, "It's a misunderstanding. That incident was a misunderstanding. Those bastards asked me if I had a chance of winning against you, and I said I could defeat the enemy in one move. In the end, those guys went out and bragged. How can I casually joke around with my reputation? I don't care. You must fight with me today," Bailey Lu said stubbornly. Fang Yan hesitated for a while, then gritted his teeth and said, "Fine, then I'll casually beat you up. Let me say this first, today is not the day to fight to the death." Before Fang Yan's voice faded, a huge gourd had already flown towards where he was standing. Boom! The mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Felt like the whole earth was shaking. The loud sound reverberated in their ears, almost piercing their eardrums. Grass and trees flew, and gravel turned to dust. At the place where Fang Yan had just stood, the heavy wine gourd had smashed a big round pit. "Bailey Lu, you dare to sneak up on me." Fang Yan waved away the dust and smoke in front of him and shouted, "If I don't sneak up on you, then it's your turn to sneak up on me." As Bailey Lu spoke, his huge body had already leaped down from the big rock. His big feet stepped heavily on the side of the wine gourd. With a flick of his toes, the wine gourd had already flown from the ground into his hand. Holding the handle of the gourd, he swung the huge wine gourd and smashed it towards Fang Yan's head. The people of the Bailey family were born with great strength. This half-solid copper gourd that weighed 108 kilograms was like a toy in his hands. Whoosh whoosh! The wind howled wildly, carrying with it the power to destroy heaven and earth. With that blow just now, Fang Yan had already seen the power of this copper gourd. Could smash rocks and create a big pit on the hard concrete floor. How could flesh and blood resist it? Of course, Fang Yan would not fight it head-on. Fighting head-on would be a problem with his brain. However, blindly dodging was not an option. Bailey Lu's strength was unparalleled, and he could not use it up in a short while. If he allowed his attacks to form a momentum, then Fang Yan could only be placed in his momentum and be controlled by him in a passive state. Fang Yan needed to seize the momentum, and he needed to counterattack. Both his feet were on the ground, and his body was in a wobbly, tumbling state. Boom! The wine gourd was getting closer and closer, and the strong wind was blowing. Fang Yan's face was burning with pain. This was the result of being cut by the wind blade. It arrived in an instant. Fang Yan moved. His body leaned back, and both his feet were like nails that were rooted to the ground, not moving an inch. Whoosh! The wine gourd was swung over his upper body. Bailey Lu laughed out loud, and then took back the wine gourd in his hand. He raised it high, and smashed it down towards the top of Fang Yan's head. Whoosh! Fang Yan's body only moved slightly to the side, and once again avoided the wine gourd's attack. Whoosh! This time it was a direct attack from the side, and the position of the attack was also in the middle of the body, which was not easy to avoid. The chest. Whoosh! The fourth attack failed. Whoosh! The fifth attack missed again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Fang Yan stretched out his hand. His slender right hand reached out towards the wine gourd. As if it had no bones, it stuck to the belly of the wine gourd. Tai Chi was a circle. The wine gourd was a circle. Tai Chi was the wine gourd, and the wine gourd was Tai Chi. Bailey Lu used all his strength, and he moved with little effort. Bailey Lu smashed with great force, and he swung the willow with the wind. He held a circle with one hand, and drew a circle with the other. He formed a circle with one hand. As he drew, the wine gourd was already out of Bailey Lu's control, and became a sharp weapon in Fang Yan's hand. Circle upon circle, and the man and Tai Chi became one. This was the true meaning of the heart of Tai Chi. The 108 kilograms copper wine gourd spun and jumped in Fang Yan's palm. Fang Yan did not use any strength, but he borrowed the strength of Bailey Lu and the weight of the wine gourd itself. Damn it! Bailey Lu lost his gourd, and with a loud roar, He rushed towards Fang Yen desperately. Fang Yen stretched out his left hand and pushed hard. Boom! The wine gourd spun at a speed that was hard to be seen by the naked eye, and then smashed towards Bailey Lu's body. Bang! Bailey Lu's body flew backward and fell towards the line gorge not far away. Chapter 128. If he is strong, let him be strong, like a cool breeze caressing the hills. If he is unruly, let him be unruly, like the bright moon shining on the great river. If he is cruel, let him be evil, I will be full of vital energy. This sentence was from the 9-Yang Sutra in Jin Daxia's masterpiece, The Heaven Sword and Dragon Saber. Jin Daxia obviously didn't know Kung Fu, but some scholars believe that Jin Daxia must know Tai Chi, or that he was a researcher of Tai Chi culture, because what he said was almost a true portrayal of Tai Chi's technique of exerting force. Fang Yen was a descendant of the Tai Chi family. Although he thought that Tai Chi was broad and profound, it couldn't be summed up by Jin Daxia's words. However, he couldn't deny that using softness to overcome hardness was the core essence of Tai Chi, using strength to fight strength. I won't use strength. Hitting an ox across the mountain won't hurt me. This was why Tai Chi looked powerful and pretentious. Compared to hard skills, soft skills were the most difficult to practice. Compared to a heavy sword, a soft sword was the most difficult to use. However, once it was learned, it would be invincible. Of course, this referred to the situation where the two sides were evenly matched. If the opponent's strength was higher, no matter how soft your soft skills were, you would be punched into pieces by the opponent. How could you have a chance to win? The Bailey family was famous for their strength, and Bailey Lu was the leader of the younger generation of the Bailey family. Therefore, he challenged Fang Yan's Tai Chi with brute force, which was a risk in itself, especially when Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi was activated again. Bailey Lu let out a muffled groan. His huge body was heavily smashed by the wine gourd, and he flew towards the line gorge. The gorge was unfathomable, and falling down was bound to be smashed. However, Fang Yen didn't stop there. He rushed to the side of the cliff and pulled out a road sign slate from the soil. Then, he held the slate and smashed it towards the place where Bailey Lu had just fallen. He proved with his own actions that hitting a person when he was down was not a moral problem at all. Falling off the cliff was the real scum. Boom! The slate whistled down, following Bailey Lu's body. Fang Yen was still worried. He moved his toes and threw the small stones on the ground towards the cliff. There's bound to be one piece of an inescapable net that can hurt you. Clang! A crisp sound was heard. Fang Yen hurriedly ran to the edge of the cliff, only to see that the 108 Jin wine gourd was actually flying up from below. The sound just now came from the stone hitting the wine gourd. Fang Yen tapped the ground with his toes and jumped off the cliff. Both of his feet stepped on the body of the wine gourd. With a force of 1,000 Jin, he was determined to make the wine gourd sink rapidly. Bang! Fang Yan's feet landed on top of the huge wine gourd. The wine gourd was suppressed by Fang Yan's strength and fell down the cliff like a swallow with a broken wing. The mountain wind whistled, and the white fog rolled. Dressed in white, Fang Yen stood on top of the wine gourd and descended rapidly between the mountain streams. He looked like a celestial deity riding on a flying gourd. After falling for several hundred meters, a loud shout suddenly came from below the wine gourd. Roar, a muffled roar that was suppressed to the extreme and exploded to the extreme was heard. Suddenly, an earth-shattering force came from the bottom of the wine gourd. Clang! The wine gourd's body trembled violently. Fang Yan's feet, which were standing on top of the wine gourd, also felt numb in pain. The wine gourd flew up into the sky like an unstoppable rocket. Even Fang Yan's body flew up from below the cliff. Clang! Another loud noise rang out. The wine gourd's ascent slowed down a little, then accelerated again. Clang! Another loud noise rang out. The wine gourd rushed even faster. Clang! 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 His head was bleeding, and his long hair disheveled. Bailey Lu looked like a wild man in the valley, or like an enraged ape monster. Punches after punches landed on the bottom of the wine gourd. He used his brutal body, his strong ability to stay in the air, and the strength of the rocks on the mountain walls, the rattan ropes, and the wine gourd's own driving force to rush forward. Pressing forward with indomitable will. In the world of martial arts, only speed is unbeatable. In the world of martial arts, only strength is unbeatable. Great strength is unbeatable. Roar. Another bestial howl rang out. Clang. Bailey Lu's heaviest and most ruthless punch landed on the bottom of the wine gourd. Fong Yen, who was wearing shoes, felt that the wine gourd was boiling hot, as if it was about to burn and melt. His toes touched the ground, and his body floated diagonally towards the top of the cliff. Whether it was playing chess or fighting, the most frightening thing was that the two sides had a continuous momentum. After Bailey Lu's 9 punches, his attack had already formed momentum. Unstoppable. The wine gourd's ascent and his leap were already difficult to stop. All Fong Yen could do was to wait for his overlord's return at the top of the wide line gorge. Whoosh! Fong Yan's toes landed lightly on the ground. In a place that was hard to see with the naked eye, the stones that his feet stepped on turned into ashes, and the weeds turned yellow and withered into mud. The soles of his feet were emitting light smoke, as if his shoes were about to burn. It was not the shoes that were emitting smoke, but Fong Yan's feet that were emitting smoke. If he had not used the power of Taiji to resist, he would have been killed by Bailey Lu's defying God Fist when he was standing on top of the wine gourd. Taiji could borrow strength to fight, and so could the defying God Fist. As long as you practiced any kind of martial arts to the extreme, you could achieve the same result by different means. The Bailey family's Divine Fist was good at attack, while the Fong family's Taiji was good at defense. This was also the reason why the Bailey family repeatedly challenged the Fong family. When the world's sharpest spear met the world's strongest shield, what would the result be? This was the answer that everyone wanted to know. The Bailey family also wanted to prove to the outside world that attack was the best defense. Bang! Bailey Lu's body fell heavily, and his feet left 2 deep grooves on the hard concrete floor. The wine gourd continued to fly high into the sky, and then fell down after exhausting its strength. Bailey Lu stretched out one hand and held the wine gourd in his palm. He pulled out the cork and poured the whole bottle of liquor over his head. He opened his mouth and swallowed it. The liquor was emitting thick smoke, and it had already been warmed up by the random punches. The liquor was poured over his head, and the liquor went down his throat. Satisfying. Really satisfying. Ha 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 ha. Bailey Lu shouted and laughed loudly, unrestrained and arrogant. Idiot. Fong Yen crossed his arms in front of his chest and looked at him coldly. The good Daozi was ruined just like that. The liquor was so hot. Wasn't he afraid that it would burn his face? Of course, this was a problem that a handsome man should worry about. Maybe he didn't have to worry about this kind of problem with his looks. I really envy him. Fong Yen thought to himself. The Daozi in the copper pot spilled out, and Bailey Lu closed the cork again. He held the gourd and looked at Fong Yen with a smile and said sarcastically, "Runner Fong, what you used just now was the heart of Taiji?" "That's right," Fong Yen said. "It was the heart of Taiji." "The rumor is a lie," Bailey Lu said angrily. "The rumor is that because the heart of Taiji disappeared, you were worried that you would be beaten by Yi Gentle again, so you ran away in a panic. The rumor is wrong. Your heart of Taiji didn't disappear. So why did you do such a dirty thing? You lost the face of the Fong family and the dignity of us men. Runner Fong, do you know what people think of you now?" Fong Yen smiled bitterly and said, "How could I not know that you shouted so loudly? Runner Fong, is this the new nickname you gave me?" "Yes." Bailey Lu wiped the corner of his mouth, put a few drops of Daozi into his mouth, and tasted it. He said, "Are you satisfied?" "Whether I am satisfied or not, I can't run away from the nickname Runner Fong, right?" Fong Yen said, "If I am not satisfied, you won't call me that?" "Impossible," Bailey Lu said. "It was Yi Gentle who called me first." Fong Yen felt that his chest was stagnant, and he felt powerless as if his heart was being pressed by a heavy stone. Bailey Lu looked at Fong Yen in confusion and said, since the heart of Taiji is still there, why did you run away? Were you still worried that you were no match for Yi Gentle when the heart of Taiji protected you? Of course not. Fang Yen denied. You won't believe the truth even if I tell you. What is the truth? To tell you the truth. Fang Yen glanced around vigilantly and said in a low voice, I have been competing with Yi Gentle for so many years, and I am used to being beaten by her every year. But this year has been my best year ever. I know that if we compete again, I will definitely knock her down and defeat her. I don't know why, but I am not used to the thought of knocking her down. I think she must be very uncomfortable in her heart. She is such a proud woman, and she wins every year. She must be very disappointed when she suddenly loses, right? You don't want her to get hurt? No, you don't want her to be disappointed. Not at all. This is love, Bailey Lu said with absolute certainty. I knew many years ago that you would have such a day sooner or later. What day? Fang Yen widened his eyes. You mean, Yi Gentle and I are in love? Yes. Bailey Lu nodded seriously. Enemies, enemies. How can you be a family without hatred? You have been fighting for so many years, and it is natural that you like each other. Let me tell you, I knew you would have such a day when I was 18 years old. Although Yi Gentle is violent and unreasonable, she is actually quite beautiful. How about you two just make do with each other? I see. Fang Yen looked like he understood and said, No wonder I would rather skip class and run away than defeat her. Turns out that I was blinded by love. Bailey Lu, you have to keep it a secret for me. If you are really tired of holding it in, you can't talk to more than 3 people at most. After a pause, Fang Yen said, Of course, although I like Yi Gentle a little, I will not marry such an evil woman. Her violence is not worthy of my gentleness and kindness. Chapter 129. To any martial artist with feelings and self-respect, running away in the face of battle was the greatest humiliation. Fang ran. Thinking of this nickname, Fang Yen had the urge to cry. Why do I have to beat that violent woman? I have no grudge against her. I didn't peep at her when she was bathing or touch her breasts. Why do we have to have a competition every year? Isn't it better to have a competition every 30 or 50 years? Everyone will have more time to prepare for the competition, and they won't have too much psychological pressure, of course. It was also a shame for Fang Yen to fall in love with a woman like Yi Ro, a woman who would beat someone up over the head and make them unable to get out of bed for half a month. Who would like such a woman? Was such a woman still a woman? However, compared with running away, he was more afraid that others would say that he ran away because he couldn't beat Yi Ro, although it was true. Thus, he found a ridiculous and dignified reason for his departure. Because he liked Yi Ro and didn't want her to be hurt. He didn't want to beat her down and make her feel disappointed and regretful. Running away when you can't beat someone is a coward. If he labeled his escape as love, then Fang Yen would be a man of love and righteousness. Fang Yen secretly gave himself hundreds of likes in his heart. He felt that he was so smart. Bailey Lu stared at Fang Yen, dumbfounded. He thought to himself, how could he say such shameless words? However, thinking of his usual style of dealing with things, he felt that it was reasonable for him to do such a thing. She won't like you, Bailey Lu said. What? Yi Ro won't like you. People were like this. You could dislike a person, but you wanted everyone in the world to like you. This was especially true for many goddesses. They never thought of marrying a spare tire, but if the spare tire married another woman, the goddesses would still feel a little disappointed and angry. That was the mentality of Fang Ran. He never thought of being with Yi Ro. Thinking of this possibility, he would have nightmares at night. However, he was still angry when he heard Bailey Lu said that Yi Ro wouldn't like him. Why won't she like me? Why wouldn't she like me? Yi Ro said that her man must do 3 things. First, a man of indomitable spirit. Second, a true gentleman who keeps his word. Third, you can beat her. How am I not indomitable? Fang Yen said. How am I not a true gentleman who keeps his promises? How could I lose to her? I just haven't hit her yet. Bailey Lu's eyes became contemptuous and he said, I don't think you can fulfill any of these 3 requests, can you? Fang Yen looked at Bailey Lu with a murderous look and said, I suddenly felt something. Do you like the feeling of Yi-Ro? I feel like I won't rest until you're dead, Fang Yen said viciously. Some people don't know how to respect you unless you beat them up. Good. Bailey Lu laughed. Before I was asked to kill you, I was worried that your Taiji heart would disappear, and I would have an unfair advantage. Since your Taiji heart is back in the fight just now, let's have a good fight. I won't rest until you're dead. I'm just saying. Before Fang Yen finished his sentence, Bailey Lu had already run toward him with the wine gourd that weighed more than 50 kilograms in one hand. Before he arrived, the fat gourd's belly had already smashed toward him. Boom! The strong wind whistled like a tiger's roar. Fang Yen stepped back and chose to avoid the first blow. Fang Yen stepped back, but Bailey Lu rushed forward faster and faster. The wine gourd in his hand was ready to be fired, and it kept threatening and pressuring Fang Yen. Bang! Fang Yan's body hit the stone mountain behind him. There was no way to retreat. It was extremely dangerous. Bang! The copper gourd smashed on the stone wall where Fang Yen was without any pause. Crack, crack. Gravel kept falling, and a long and thick crack appeared on the huge stone mountain. The cracks continued to extend, and countless fine cracks appeared in the stone. However, Fang Yen had disappeared. Bailey Lu didn't hesitate. He held the copper gourd in one hand and made a 90-degree hook with the other. Bang! Fang Yan's palm collided with Bailey Lu's punch, making a heavy sound. Fang Yan's clothes and hair were stained with dust, and there were several cuts on his face from the stones. He looked a little embarrassed. However, he magically appeared behind Bailey Lu. A palm lightly patted toward Bailey Lu's back, and it collided with Bailey Lu's punch. All these actions happened in an instant. In other words, Fang Yen flashed behind Bailey Lu and counterattacked with his palm, and Bailey Lu immediately blocked with his fist after his attack missed. When a so-called master reached a certain level, he no longer used his eyes to defeat the enemy. He relied on his intuition. Eyes can deceive, and feelings are your most honest and reliable friend. Bailey Lu wanted to disperse after one blow and reorganize a second attack. However, Fang Yan's palm was stuck on his wrist, and he went straight for his vital meridian. Whoosh! Fang Yen hit the vital meridian point on Bailey Lu's wrist. Bailey Lu's body was exhausted, and the wine gourd in his right hand immediately fell to the ground. Fang Yen didn't stop at all. When Bailey Lu lost the ability to attack, he punched Bailey Lu's chest. His ribs were broken and he really lost the ability to fight. This trick again. Bailey Lu grinned. It was a sly smile, as if his plan had succeeded. He clenched his fist with one hand, and the fist became extremely huge, and there was a faint red light flashing. Soon, his fist turned crimson, like a heated sledgehammer. Not only his fist, but even his arm had turned blue and black. This was a sign before it turned red. Fang Yen was shocked. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, and Bailey Lu's god-defying fist had already reached his arm. Wherever the god-defying fist was practiced, that part could break mountains and crush stones as hard as steel. If this was the case, then the fact that he grabbed his wrist meridian was a trap. It was a flaw that he deliberately revealed. His body losing strength and throwing away the gourd was also a disguise, to deceive Fang Yen into letting his guard down. At this moment, Bailey Lu's hand that was holding the gourd reached out and grabbed Fang Yan's shoulder blade. Dragon God Lock. Could even lock a dragon god, let alone a small loach like Fang Yen. Bang! Fang Yan's stomach was hit, and the pain almost made him vomit the dinner he had last night. Knee strike. Bang! Another knee strike. Bang! The third strike. Fang Yen felt dizzy, and he wanted to vomit. He had the urge to faint on the spot. He knew that if he really fainted on the ground, Bailey Lu would not hesitate to grab his legs and throw him into the gorge. Although the two of them seemed to be very close on the outside, as if they were old friends for many years. However, they both knew that when the real battle began, neither of them would show mercy to the other. New hatred and old hatred. They would not rest until one of them died. Bailey Lu lifted his calf again. He had already pressed Fang Yan's body lower and lower. This time he wanted to hit his sternum. As long as his ribs were broken, Fang Yan would become a rabbit waiting to be slaughtered. Bam! Fang Yan's hands pressed on Bailey Lu's knees. Bailey Lu exerted force, and so did Fang Yan. Bailey Lu exerted more force, and Fang Yan used the heart of Tai Chi to borrow force. No matter how hard Bailey Lu tried, he could not hit Fang Yan's ribs with his knee. "Do you think you can stop me like this?" Bailey Lu laughed wildly. "Fang Yan, from today on, I will prove to you that attack is the best defense. The winner of this battle is me." Bailey Godly Fist defeated Fang family's Tai Chi. "Are you?" Fang Yan's breathing was a little heavy. That was because his lungs were injured. "Are you thinking too much?" As Fang Yan spoke, he hooked one hand, and Bailey Lu's feet were lifted off the ground at the same time. Fang Yan suddenly straightened his back, and Bailey Lu's body, which was on his shoulder, was abruptly lifted up. He crossed his feet, pressed his body on the ground, and drew Tai Chi with his toes. At the same time, his body also rotated. He held his hands in a circle, and used Bailey Lu's body as an arc of Tai Chi. The heart of Tai Chi rotated crazily, and only a white gas vortex could be seen, but its real body could not be seen clearly. There was a warm and abundant gas in the Chi pit, like a Chi meridian extending to the limbs and the major meridians of the whole body. When it went around in the body and entered the sea of Chi again, Fang Yan felt that he suddenly became energetic and powerful. He felt that his whole body was full of power, and he had an impulse to destroy, and to crush all the enemies. Bailey Lu wanted to struggle, but Fang Yan took the initiative to press him down. He made a move and Fang Yan pressed him down. He made a kick, and Fang Yan pressed his foot down. Fang Yan's body rotated faster and faster, and his hands danced faster and faster. Bailey Lu's vertical body turned into an oval, and the oval became a circle. There is no heaven and no me, and I am Tai Chi. It had to be said that the feeling of being able to look inside and foresee the enemy was really awesome and pretentious. Bailey Lu's body turned into a ball, and became the Tai Chi that Fang Yan was playing with and dancing. Fang Yan raised his hands, and Bailey Lu, the meatball, was thrown into the air. Then he leaped into the air. His whole body stretched out, like a big eagle spreading its wings and soaring. When the height of his jump was the same as the height of the meatball, he kicked the meatball away. Bang! The meatball hit the mountain wall, and the sound of bones breaking was heard. Whoosh! Fang Yan's feet landed on the ground. The second round, the Fang family of Tai Chi wins. Fang Yan stood proudly and said in a clear voice. Chapter 130. Fang Yan and Bailey Lu had fought 2 rounds. Of course, in the hearts of some uninformed spectators, they had fought 3 times. In the first round, Fang Yan made an appointment with Bailey Lu to fight 3 days later with the excuse of feeling unwell. Unexpectedly, as soon as Bailey Lu left the Fang family, someone spread the rumor that Fang Yan defeated Bailey Lu in 1 move. Bailey Lu could not explain it, so he could only suppress his anger in his heart. In the second round, Bailey Lu challenged Fang Yan again. The two also made a heavy bet that the defeated party could not take care of his hair or wash his clothes before he challenged his opponent again. Therefore, Bailey Lu became like a savage in the deep mountains today. The third round was today. Bailey Lu came prepared. At a young age, he had practiced the inverse God punch to his arms. He could be called the best of the younger generation of Wulin, and his strength could not be underestimated. Unexpectedly, Fang Yan still turned the tables at the last moment. While he was beaten into a ball, he had to continue to abide by the agreement that his hair could not be taken care of and his clothes could not be washed. He walked in Jianghu in ragged clothes with this bad hairstyle, was beaten by his father with a stick, and was ridiculed by his peers. The history of Bailey Lu's growth was a tragic history of hardship. Fang Yan stood in the same place, waiting for Bailey Lu's body to hit the stone wall and then fall to the ground again. He was ready to go up and give him a few more kicks. Bailey Lu's ball-like body was sliding down rapidly. As he slid down, his body gradually stretched out. Obviously, he had broken away from Fang Yan's control and recovered some physical strength and self-awareness. Then, he suddenly punched out, and his blazing red arm was ruthlessly inserted into the stone wall. He was like a gecko hanging on the mountainside, with a stubborn look that he would not go down even if he died. Fang Yan waved to Bailey Lu and shouted, "Bailey Lu, come down. I don't want to go down." As soon as Bailey Lu opened his mouth, he vomited a mouthful of blood. That kid was too ruthless. He was beating him to death. He knew that his body was seriously injured, and his internal organs were also hit hard. He might need a long time to recuperate. "Come down. I have something to discuss with you," shouted Fang Yan. "You lied to me," Bailey Lu roared. His fists were firmly inserted into the cracks of the rocks, unwilling to fall to the ground. "Why would I lie to you? When have I ever lied to you? Apart from the previous misunderstanding, I have never lied to you even once. I swear on my character. Come down and tell me who asked you to kill me. I promise I won't hit you again." "I can't go down. I can't say," Bailey Lu said. "If you don't come down, I'll go up. I can beat you up. Do you think I can't climb up myself?" Fang Yan was angry and threatened. "Ka, ka, ka." His hands were like two indestructible awls, dancing left and right, up and down. In the blink of an eye, he had climbed from the waist of the mountain to the peak. "Fang Yan, you bastard. You son of a b***tsh. Bailey Lu stood on the peak and cursed. His long hair was spread out, and it was even more abstract than the hairstyle of Zhang Wuji's godfather, the golden fur lion king in the heaven sword and dragon saber. His mouth was bleeding, and his eyeballs were protruding. His clothes were torn into strips, and there were countless wounds on his body that were oozing blood. "How can you scold people?" shouted Fang Yan, standing at the foot of the mountain. A master should have the demeanor of a master. How could he casually scold people? This would lower his dignity and destroy the aura of a master. "I want to scold people, I want to scold you," Bailey Lu roared in exasperation. "You beat me again. Why do you want to beat me again? Why can't you let me win once? Will you die if you let me win once? Do you know that I'm dying? Do you know what kind of life I've been living since I lost to you last time? I haven't had a haircut for 2 years and 5 months. My clothes were rotten, so I took them off and washed them secretly. I can only sleep naked at night because I'm afraid that if I wear them out, I won't have clothes to wear the next day. My father saw my clothes and stabbed me with a spear, saying that I've lost the face of the ancestors of the Bailey family. What's even more infuriating is that my mother forced me to go on a blind date a few days ago. Beauty Lu's little cousin, that crazy woman, took a look at me and said that she wouldn't make friends with a down-and-out painter. Bailey Lu's eyes were moist, and big drops of tears rolled down his cheeks. Who's a down-and-out painter? Who's a down-and-out painter? I haven't even held a brush before. I can't even draw an egg. How can I be a painter? Fang Yan, it's all your fault. I must kill you. To be honest, after listening to Bailey Lu's sorrowful attack and accusation, Fang Yan really sympathized with this unlucky child. At that time, both of them were young. In order to make each other's life more miserable, they made such a bet. Unexpectedly, from then on, the life of the gentle, handsome, and charming young master of the Bailey family had become like this. The quality of his life had deteriorated too fast. No wonder this kid couldn't bear it and came all the way here to kill and take revenge. Fang Yan waved to Bailey Lu and shouted, "Bailey Lu, come down." "I'm not going down, unless you promise me something." "What is it?" "Cancel the previous agreement. I can have a haircut and change my clothes," Bailey Lu shouted. "What did you say?" "Cancel the previous agreement. I can have a haircut and change my clothes." "In your dreams," Fang Yan said angrily. He looked up and said, "It's up to you. If you have the ability, stand on the top for 3 days and 3 nights. I'll consider agreeing to your condition." "Fang Yan, I hate you." Bailey Lu looked at Fang Yan in despair and ran to the other end of the top of the mountain. Soon, his figure disappeared in front of Fang Yan. It's all the fault of the blind date. Fang Yen sighed in his heart. A good young man became mentally ill because of the blow he received during the blind date. It was really frightening to think about it. A blind date is fiercer than a tiger. When Fang Yen returned to the hotel, he found that there were no students from Class 9 in the restaurant. Even the two little girls, Jiang Qin and Yuan Lin, who said they would wait for him to come back for breakfast, had disappeared. Fang Yen called the waiter over and asked, "Hello, may I ask if those students have eaten?" "Yes," the waiter said. "So fast?" Fang Yen asked in surprise. He and Bailey Lu didn't fight for too long. Logically speaking, they shouldn't be so fast. When those students were eating breakfast, someone ran over and said that they saw Xia Tian filming at Shisha Mountain. The waiter's expression became excited and said with envy, "They all ran to see Xia Tian. The Xia Tian again." Fang Yen said gloomily. He had planned to bring the students back to school after they had their fill. These students all ran to find the crew to see the stars. Where could he find them all? "What did you say?" The waiter who was serving Fang Yen soy milk and fried dough sticks stared at Fang Yen fiercely. Her hand stopped and said, "You said it's Xia Tian again? You don't like Xia Tian?" "I don't dislike her. I mean, you do. I can tell from your tone." The waiter was obviously a hardcore fan of Xia Tian. "Why don't you like Xia Tian? What's wrong with Xia Tian? Do you know how hard Xia Tian works?" The waiter threw the soy milk cup in front of Fang Yen, but forgot to leave him a sugar bun. When she left with the tray, she said discontentedly, "You don't understand Xia Tian. You don't know what kind of woman is a real goddess. You don't understand her. If you understand her, you will fall in love with her." Fang Yen finished the 2 fried dough sticks and a cup of warm, unsweetened soy milk on the plate. He wiped his mouth and was ready to look for his students. He found the greeter at the door and asked the direction in which the students left and rushed in that direction. There was no need to deliberately look for them because there were many people on the road with him. From their excited expressions and topics of discussion, it was obvious that they were also looking for Xia Tian. Fang Yen was not ignorant about Xia Tian. He had also heard of Xia Tian's name. He knew that Xia Tian had acted and sung, but that was all. He didn't expect that this star had such a great influence. Because she was filming at Mount Zhangxia, the tourists of Mount Zhangxia were probably looking for the location of her filming crew. Thinking that the students of Class 9 had abandoned their teacher and ran to find a woman they had never seen before, Fang Yen felt an inexplicable sadness in his heart. Is it really Xia Tian? Is it fake news? It must be Xia Tian. Someone has already taken a photo and posted it on Weibo. It was taken at Mount Zhangxia. Great. I finally have a chance to see Xia Tian. Xia Tian is too low-key. She hasn't held a concert for several years. It's not easy to see her. Low-key? Fang Yen sneered. If she really wanted to be low-key, she wouldn't have deliberately revealed her whereabouts. Letting so many people look for her all over the mountains and plains, how could she be called low-key? At this moment, Fang Yen heard the sound of branches rustling in the woods on a narrow side road. Fang Yen stopped and looked over. He happened to meet a pair of bright and gentle eyes. The woman obviously didn't expect that she would be discovered as soon as she showed her head. She looked anxious and hurriedly made a shushing gesture to Fang Yen. Worried that Fang Yen wouldn't agree, she put her palms together and made a pleading gesture to Fang Yen. Fang Yen was stunned for a moment and shouted in surprise, "You are Xia Tian?" Chapter 131. For many people, the word summer is the password to unlock the computer and the keyword set by the brain automatically. Hearing Fang Yen shout, "You are summer," everyone looked at him. Summer? Where is it? Where is summer? Why don't I see it? Summer, come out. We have already seen you. Everyone searched for a while and did not find the figure of their idol goddess Summer, so they looked at Fang Yen with hostility. Hey, didn't you say you saw Summer? Where is Summer? A young girl wearing glasses looked at Fang Yen and asked angrily. Yes, you liar. Another girl with a cap next to the girl was also angry. How can you lie at such a young age? A middle-aged uncle followed them and accused Fang Yen. Fang Yen remembered very clearly that it was this middle-aged uncle who shouted, "Summer, come out, we have already seen you," and other lies to the woods. Can't lie at such a young age? Can you only lie when you're old? When Fang Yen figured out that the woman who gestured to him to be silent and begged him to help keep it a secret was the big star Summer that they were looking for, he didn't mean to keep it a secret for her. How can a star refuse to see her fans? Signing a photo and treating them to dinner is a matter of course. However, hearing these fans accusing and attacking him, Fang Yen changed his mind. Don't you want to see your idol? I won't tell you where your idol is. I have seen Summer. Fang Yen said innocently. Where? Why didn't we see it? The girl with glasses searched around again. The blooming flowers are summer. The green grass is summer. The leafy saplings are summer. The thorns and thorns are also summer. Fang Yen pointed to the surrounding scenery and said, the birds in the sky are summer. The fish in the river are summer. And the earthworms in the soil are summer. Where is summer? Summer is in our eyes and in our hearts. Fang Yen looked at the middle-aged uncle and said, Uncle, didn't you say you saw summer? Why are you still asking me where summer is? Who are you calling uncle? Who are you calling uncle? You look even older than me, and you still have the nerve to call me uncle. The uncle was very angry, and the consequences were very serious. Crazy. The bespectacled girl cursed. This person is really annoying. I thought he saw the summer, but it turns out he's a poet. Since they didn't get the information they wanted from Fang Yen, they followed their original plan and continued forward to search for summer. Fang Yen waited for them to leave before he walked to the front of the dense forest at the fork and said, Come out. The branches and leaves swayed, and a beautiful figure in an ancient costume stood in front of Fang Yen. Elegant and refined, otherworldly like an immortal. This was Fang Yan's first impression of her. Just now, it was just a hurried exchange of glances. At that time, all Fang Yen could see was the purity and worry in her eyes. Now that she was standing in front of Fang Yen was able to redefine her perception and understanding. She is indeed a beautiful woman, Fang Yen thought. How could this be? The girl said in a sweet voice. Even when she was angry, she was still so gentle and pleasant. What should I do? Fang Yen asked. I already told you not to make a sound and not to tell them where I am. Why did you expose my whereabouts? Xiaji said angrily. Fang Yen laughed, pointed at the crowd and said, If I had deliberately exposed your whereabouts, you would have been surrounded by them by now, right? But you. Xiaji thought about it, but really couldn't blame Fang Yen for doing something wrong. Although he had asked that very inappropriate question, but he did not really betray himself. Then you can't compare me to some fish in the water or earthworm in the soil. I'm describing summer. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter. It has nothing to do with you. Fang Yen said. Xiaji scanned his surroundings and frowned, carrying his cumbersome ancient robe. He hesitated on where to go next. The news that the crew of the Divine Furnace was filming at the Shisha Mountain was accidentally discovered by someone, and someone even took a photo of her and posted it on the internet. Now all the tourists in the Shisha Mountain were looking for her. It was said that a large number of fans were rushing towards the Shisha Mountain. The crew of the Divine Furnace was already surrounded, and she was brought out by Feng Yuancheng from a small path. In order to distract the group of people who were following him, Feng Yuancheng deliberately led them to another fork in the road. Now, she was the only one left walking in the mountains. She was at a loss for what to do. The crew couldn't go back. She didn't know the way up the mountain, and she could be surrounded by the huge number of fans at any time. The most tragic thing was that her phone was still in the hands of her assistant. How could she deal with such a complicated situation by herself? Her helpless and pitiful appearance touched a certain chord in Fang Yan's heart. He suddenly felt that if he didn't help this woman at this time, he would despise himself along with many others. And she was such a beautiful woman. You're Xiaji, right? Fang Yen asked. Xiaji had already regained her composure and regained her composure as a big star. She said, Yes, I'm Xiaji. Where are you going? Fang Yan asked. Where to? Xiaji thought for a moment and said, I haven't thought about it yet. Maybe I should go to the police for help. I mean, if I really have to. Fang Yan sighed. A while ago, a Korean star came to Huaxia to participate in an event. In the end, he was chased by a large group of fans and didn't even have the chance to pee. He could only ask the police station on the highway for help. Now, another star was chased by fans and wanted to go to the police. It's really not easy to be a star. Fang Yan somewhat sympathized with Tang Tianwang back then. He was so popular that there was no one before him. Wasn't his life too exciting? Is there anything I can help you with? Fang Yan asked. Xiaji looked at Fang Yan and said, I think you look very familiar. Fang Yan took out a business card from his pocket and said, A man named Zhang Wei came to me and said he was your agent? So it's you. Xiaji was shocked and overjoyed. It was too far away at that time, so I couldn't see it clearly. I just feel that when you do Tai Chi, there's an indescribable charm there. That's why I wanted to cooperate with you. I'm sorry, I was too presumptuous. It's nothing. Fang Yan stuffed the business card into his pants pocket again. Although I refuse to cooperate with you, I can't be angry with you if you insist on praising me like this. I'll take you to a place. Fang Yan said. Where are we going? Xiaji looked at Fang Yan warily. With her current status, it was really not suitable for her to be too close to a young man. Moreover, this man was quite strange. Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled, saying, Miss Xia, you actually don't have much of a choice. Either you come with me, or you'll be surrounded by real fans. You'll also be taken advantage of by some fake fans. Back then, when Tang Tianwang was disguised as a woman, there were men who sneaked into the fan group to touch his butt. Xiaji felt her scalp go numb and goosebumps all over her body. She resisted the urge to turn around and look at her butt. She looked into Fang Yan's eyes and said, Why should I believe you? I'm a teacher at Rosefinch Secondary. This time, I came to Shisha Mountain to bring my students to travel. If you don't believe me, this is my teacher's ID. As Fang Yan spoke, he took out his work ID and the list of students in Class 9 from his pocket and showed them to Xia. Xiaji carefully studied it and confirmed that it wasn't fake. He returned the ID to Fang Yan and said apologetically, I'm really sorry. I have to be more careful. Then I'll have to trouble you. It's a bit troublesome. Fang Yan looked at the white robe and the high bun on his head and said, If you don't want to be recognized immediately, I suggest you change your clothes. Change clothes? Xiaji frowned. She was interrupted by the surging fans in the middle of filming, so she ran out in her costume. If she had a change of clothes, she would have changed long ago. Why would she wait until now? Wait a moment, Fang Yan said. He looked around but didn't see any clothing stores nearby. Thus, his gaze shifted to Xiaji and said, Actually, it's not that there's no way, it's just, you need to make some sacrifices. Xiaji had indeed made a great sacrifice. If the outside world saw the noble goddess of the entertainment circle with a white veil covering her face like an Arab woman and only revealing a pair of eyes, they would probably be shocked. Fang Yan couldn't help Xiaji by a change of clothes, so he took off the large piece of white veil on her head and wrapped it around her head. She changed the robe she was wearing into a large robe worn by Arab women. It was simple and convenient, and it wasn't easy to attract attention. Fang Yan was going to take Xiaji back to the hotel they rented to temporarily avoid the limelight, and then call her assistant to come over and quietly pick her up. Just as they walked to the lobby of the hotel, they happened to meet Tangqing, who was accompanying Qin Etian out for a walk. Tangqing stared at Fang Yan with wide eyes, a look of disbelief. Teacher Fang Yan, did he pick up another girl? Moreover, it was a woman full of exotic charm. Chapter 132. When Tangqing saw Fang Yan come back with an Arabian girl, his first reaction was to turn around and look at Qin Etian's face. To his disappointment, Qin Etian's face showed no emotion. It was as if he didn't see it at all. Tangqing was a little disappointed, but on second thought, he quickly returned to normal. Pretend. Keep pretending. Let's see how you can pretend. Tangqing knew Qin Etian to a certain extent, and he knew that this girl was not the same as other girls. Ordinary girls liked and didn't like, and their emotions could be seen at a glance. Qin Etian's aura was strong, and she spoke and did things frankly and directly. However, that was her real body, or it could be her disguise. She was like a mystery. She was deeper and more introverted. It was difficult to see her mind clearly, and it was even more difficult to pry into the secrets in her heart. If Qin Etian really liked Fang Yan, how could she not be angry when she saw such a scene? The reason why she didn't show it was because she hid it in her heart, or she didn't like Fang Yan at all. The picture of Fang Yan dancing Tai Chi on the top of Zhangxia Mountain kept appearing in Tangqing's mind, as if his heart was covered with a layer of haze. How could you defeat such a man, such a rival in love? Now the wind blew away the haze, and the sun shone. Tangqing suddenly became happy. Fang Yan nodded to Tangqing, and then walked toward the hotel elevator with Xia in his arms. Tangqing looked at the backs of Fang Yan and the Arabian girl as they left, then turned to Qin Etian and said, "Haha, Mr. Fang is really popular with women." Qin Etian took a deep look at Tangqing and said, "Childish." Tangqing felt as if he had been stabbed in the chest. How am I childish? Did I do something wrong again? I was so quick-witted and discreetly gave teacher Fang Yan some eyesight. Could it be that you also found out? When Qin Etian and Tangqing boarded the elevator, Fang Yan and the Arabian girl had already disappeared. Qin Etian did not return to his room, but said to Tangqing, "Mr. Fang has a guest. Let's go and greet him." Tangqing grinned and said, "Yes, we should go and say hello." He thought to himself, I was right, you still care about me. You're still angry. Thinking that Qin Etian actually cared that Fang Yan was angry because he took another woman back to his room, the smile on Tangqing's face instantly froze. He wanted to cry. Bang! As the door to the room was closed, Xia's heart also followed the sound of the door slamming heavily. A hotel on a high mountain, a man and a woman meeting for the first time, a tightly closed oak door. To be honest, such an environment was too dangerous. Such an atmosphere was too ambiguous. Xia was at a loss. She had been in the entertainment industry for many years. Because of her purity and good family environment, her life had always been simple and monotonous. She liked to sing, so she simply sang. She tried to act, but it was just a simple act. Her daily life and work matters were taken care of by her assistant and agent, and the company would come forward to solve the bigger matters. She rarely went to negotiate or communicate with others in person. Some people said that she was the goddess of the entertainment industry, and God rarely appeared in the public eye. Fang Yan saw Xia's awkwardness and comforted her. "Don't worry, I'm not as bad as you think." After listening to Fang Yan's comfort, Xia was even more worried. However, she still pretended to be calm and said, "I believe you. A martial artist who can play that kind of big pattern and momentum must not be a bad person." "You can't say that." Fang Yan sighed. "There are a lot of bastards in our circle, and their martial arts are quite good. He has both talent and looks. I just beat one away. Don't judge a book by its cover. The results could be very hurtful." Xia stared at Fang Yan even more vigilantly. She didn't know if she should choose to believe this seemingly honest guy or not judge a book by its cover and categorize him as a bastard. "You still don't believe me?" Fang Yan looked at Xia Chen's nervous expression and said, "I have already shown my sincerity enough. If you really don't believe me, then I'll leave first." "No need." Xia hurriedly stopped her. Although she felt that this was a good idea, she really couldn't do such a rude thing. She was already very apologetic that the dove had occupied the bird's nest. But now she had chased the master out while staying in the room. Was this really okay? It had to be said that the summer goddess was quite gentle and kind. "I'm just saying," Fang Yan said with a smile. "If you agree, it proves that you don't believe me. If you don't believe me, I'm sure I won't help you anymore. We can't be good friends. Then I'll have to ask you to leave. You can take off the veil on your head," Fang Yan said. To be honest, Xia Chen really didn't want to take off the veil. Because of the cover of this white veil, she felt safer. Moreover, when she was angry or shy, she didn't have to worry about being seen. However, now that he had entered the room, wouldn't it be too disrespectful if he didn't take off the veil? Xiaji turned around slightly and took off the white cloth on her head. Her elegant and refined face was revealed. Her cheeks were red, but her eyes didn't meet Fang Yan's gaze. She said, "Teacher Fang Yan, why did you reject Zhang Wei's invitation? I sincerely want to cooperate with you. I've already explained it very clearly. If it's not a big production, I won't accept it." Fang Yan said, "What's Tang Tianwang's first play?" "Black Man. I've read his biography." Xia said, "Yeah. His first movie had a box office of over $1 billion. My first time on screen was just to be a male lead in MTV. Thinking about it made my heart feel very unbalanced. Am I worse than him? Obviously not." "Oh right, I'm the male lead, right? No. Then what should I do? My new album will try to do some classical Huaxia style songs. I want to film the scene of you doing Tai Chi. I only have one scene. It's a distant view. Do you see the face? I might not be able to. If you want to see, it's fine. We can discuss it." There was really no way to continue this topic. Fang Yan felt that he had been insulted. Fang Yan invited Xiachan to sit down and lent her his phone so that she could call her assistant or manager and have them pick her up. "Thank you." After making the call, he returned the phone to Fang Yan and said gratefully, "You're welcome." Fang Yan said, "I didn't intend to help you at first, but then your fans attacked me, so I deliberately didn't let them see you. Besides, you're also a star, and I feel very proud to help you." Xiachen felt that he was about to collapse. "Big brother, do you have to be so straightforward? You're hurting others like this. Okay?" Dong dong dong. There was a knock on the door. Xiachen was shocked and looked at Fang Yan and said, "Did they chase us here?" "No." Fang Yan walked over to open the door and said, "I'll introduce 2 students to you." The door opened, and sure enough, Qin Etian and Tangxing stood at the door. Qin Etian looked at Xiachan, and Xiachan was also looking at the gentle but aggressive Qin Etian. "This girl is so beautiful," Xiachan thought in his heart. He also felt that beautiful was really difficult to describe Qin Etian's temperament. If he used arrogant, it would be a derogatory word. However, she was really proud of herself. Qin Etian ignored the existence of Fang Yan and went straight to Xiachan. He took the initiative to reach out to Xiachan and said, "I like your role as Little Qing in Green Snake. It's gentle, seductive, full of spirituality and offensive. Thank you for giving this role a soul. I'm Qin Etian, a student of Fang Yan. Nice to meet you, Xiachan." "I'm also very happy to meet you." Xiachan felt that everyone he saw today was so strange. The teacher's poisonous tongue was direct, and the students were arrogant and direct. There was no need for pleasantries or polite words. Everyone came naked, without any fear or respect because of his identity as a big star. "Qin Etian, you're really special. There are 4 seasons in a year, and each season has 91 days. Summer is not the most special. However, in the 1.3 billion Huaxia's mouth, there is only one singing and acting summer, and you are also the most special." Qin Etian said with a smile. "You know each other?" Tangxing looked at Qin Etian, then looked at Xiachan, and asked with a surprised face. These 2 women looked very familiar. What made it even more difficult for him to understand was that Qin Etian had been with him at that time, and Xiachan was wrapped in white cloth and went upstairs with Fang Yan. Why was she so sure that that woman was the big star Xiachan? Qin Etian turned to look at Tangxing and said, "First, Fang Yan doesn't know Arabic, so it's impossible for him to bring an Arab woman back to get a room. Second, Xiachan disappeared, and now all the tourists in the scenic area are looking for her. Third, I don't think it's strange for a woman to cover her head and face and wear a robe. A woman who dresses like this and wears this kind of boots must have just come back from ancient times, or is preparing to go back to ancient times. I think she should be the latter. In this case, there is only one person in the whole Shisha mountain who would do this kind of thing. Xiachan." Tangqing was stunned. Fang Yan and Xiachen also couldn't calm down for a long time. They thought it was foolproof, but it turned out that there were many loopholes in this girl's eyes. Whether you can conquer a woman or not, it doesn't just depend on whether you are good enough. Qin Etian looked at Tangqing and said, "You also have to be good at discovering and thinking, right?" Tangqing said with a face of self-blame. He felt that he was too careless. Why couldn't he think of what Qin Etian thought of? "It also depends on your face," Qin Etian said. Chapter 133. Liar. Tangqing said. He was better looking than Fang Yan, and he was the Prince Charming in the eyes of all the girls in Rosefinch High School. Why didn't Qin Etian like him just because of his face? "I said shameless," Qin Etian said. Tangqing looked helpless. This sort of request was really too much to ask of him. Fang Yan laughed and said, "Tangqing, it seems that you need to work harder. Shameless. Ha 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 ha. This is what Mr. Fang is good at." Tangqing looked at Fang Yan, who was laughing, and said, "I will learn from Mr. Fang." Poochie. This time, the person who couldn't help laughing was Xiaxia. It was so fun. These teachers and students were so fun. She had never seen a student who got along so well with the teacher, and she had never seen a middle school teacher who was so tolerant to the students. Moreover, a male student was pursuing another female student in front of the teacher. Such a thing made her very surprised. When she was in high school, her classmates didn't have the guts to talk about such a topic in front of the teacher. Even puppy love was strictly forbidden by the school. If the teacher knew that a boy and a girl in the class were close, they would try to separate them and even call their parents to complain. The current era was really very different from the past. Xiaxia Goddess laughed so hard that she couldn't stand up straight with her hands on her stomach. Her eyes were red, and tears were about to flow out. Finding that everyone was looking at her with a strange expression, Xiaxia tried to stop laughing and said with a red face, I'm sorry. I just think that you guys are very interesting, so I couldn't help laughing. I didn't mean to. Teacher Fang Yan is interesting, we are far from it. Tangqing said with a sour heart. This request of Qin Etian really put him in a difficult position. If she asked for other things, any of them, he could change for her and try his best to fulfill them. However, if he were to be shameless, it would really make one anxious. You think you can be shameless just because you don't want to? Shameless and still making people think that she was cute. This required talent, okay? Ovo Fang Yan was very angry. Student Tangqing, have you ever touched your own conscience when you slander me like this? Who was the one who risked his life to save you when you were ambushed by Chibahamu? Even if you're an ungrateful person, there should be a time limit, right? How long has it been since I saved you? Look! Tangqing pointed at Fang Yan and said to Xiaxia, Mr. Fang is really interesting. It's true that you saved me, but is that considered risking your life? You suddenly erupted into a Super Saiyan and beat the little monster to the point that it couldn't fight back. But I didn't see you facing any life-threatening danger. Besides, he was worried that the Wu Ren investigation team would take revenge on him, and he was also worried that he would be punished by the school leaders. So, he ran to the ward and threatened to pretend to be in a vegetative state. Was that really a good thing to do? Xia Chun suddenly envied this kind of teacher-student relationship. He looked at Fang Yan and said, Your students must like you a lot, right? There's no reason for them not to like me. Fang Yan said, It's not that I'm bragging to you, but it's not easy to find a teacher like me. They all understand this. I'm really confused. You're so good at Tai Chi, why did you become a teacher? Tai Chi teacher? Xia asked. With Fang Yan's students by her side, Xia Chun wasn't as nervous and restrained as before. Moreover, she felt that Fang Yan was a very interesting person and wanted to know more about him. Only by knowing what kind of person he was would it be convenient for them to cooperate in the future. I'm a language teacher, Fang Yan said with a smile. I know more than just Tai Chi. Mr. Fang also knows how to fence, Tangqing said. Fang Yan was furious and said, Tangqing, why are you cursing again? Mr. Fang, I'm talking about the sword of the treasured sword. not the cheap of the slut. Of course I know that's what you're talking about, Fang Yen said. I'm just joking with you. With a smile on his face, Xiaxia looked at Fang Yen and asked, Mr. Fang, do we really not have a chance to cooperate? I want to make a Huaxia style song, and I want to fuse more Huaxia elements into it. I feel that Tai Chi is indispensable. As for you, I was very moved when I saw the great momentum of Tai Chi at the peak of the Xingxia mountain. I think we can try to cooperate. I'll think about it, Fang Yen said. Seeing that Fang Yen was still unwilling to agree to her invitation, Xiaxia no longer forced herself to change the topic. She chatted with Fang Yen Tangqing about the interesting things that happened in school when she was studying. Qin Etienne sat on a chair, sipping tea as she listened. She rarely spoke. Compared to the summer, she was more like a big star. Dong, dong, dong. There was a knock on the door. Fang Yen saw two men and a woman standing at the door with worried faces from the peephole. He turned around and said, Zhang Wei is here. As he spoke, he also opened the door. Feng Yuanqing was the first to rush in. Seeing Xiaxia, who was sitting on the chair, safe and sound, he asked anxiously, Xia, are you all right? Feng Yuanqing's face was covered in sweat, and his clothes were tattered by the thorns on the tree branches. From the looks of it, he did run a lot, and he was very worried and concerned about Xiaxia. I'm fine, Xiaxia said with a smile. It's all thanks to teacher Fang Yan's help. Otherwise, I would be in a terrible situation right now. Those people were chasing too closely. It wasn't easy to get rid of them. When I ran back to look for you, I couldn't find you anymore. It's good that you're fine. Feng Yuanqing looked at Fang Yen warily and said, Let's go. We can't stay here for long. We have to hurry down the mountain. If those fanatical fans find out about this place, we won't be able to leave even if we want to. Xiaxia stood up and thanked Fang Yen once again, saying, Mr. Fang, thank you very much. If it's convenient, can you leave a business card for us to contact? I don't have a business card. Fang Yen smiled and shook his head. Then, it's fine to write down a phone number, Xia Ji insisted. Feng Yuanqing saw that Xiaxia was too enthusiastic about the young man in front of him and said with great dissatisfaction, Xia, let's go first. Let Assistant Zhang contact him. Xiaxia's expression changed slightly, but he forced himself not to say anything. Fang Yen was very unhappy. He looked at Feng Yuanqing and said, Do you like Miss Xia a lot? What did you say? Feng Yuanqing said with an unfriendly expression. If you like it, then you like it. If you don't like it, then you don't like it. You don't even have the courage to admit your feelings? What does my business have to do with you? Feng Yuanqing said with a sneer. Why should I tell you? Feng Yuanqing was not stupid. If he confessed his feelings for Xiaxia on the spot, if the media found out about this, it would definitely cause a raging storm. It would be fine if Xiaxia accepted his pursuit, but if he didn't, it would be a huge loss of face. Of course it does. If you want to pursue Miss Xia, you have to at least be more open-minded and calm. Based on my many years of experience with women, Miss Xia is a gentle and kind woman. This kind of woman hates petty men the most. If you don't want to lose the chance to compete for Miss Xia, then quickly apologize to me and ask me to forgive you. If you do, don't worry, I won't deliberately make things difficult for you. Why should I apologize to you? Why should I ask for your forgiveness? Feng Yuanqing was really angered by Fang Yen. What did I do to you? I didn't do anything. Miss Xia and I are friends. We are friends, so why are you getting involved in the middle? Fang Yen then revealed the real reason for his dissatisfaction. Friend? Feng Yuanqing's face was full of ridicule. Do you think anyone can become friends with Xiaxia after saying a few words? I know you helped Xiaxia, and I will get someone to repay you, but don't carelessly make friends. It's not appropriate for others to laugh at you and make yourself a laughingstock. What do you mean by that? Who do you think you are? Tangqing was angry and said rudely in front of Fang Yen. His feelings for Fang Yen were very complicated. He was grateful to Fang Yen from the bottom of his heart for saving his life, admired his erudition, and worshipped his deep martial arts foundation. However, Qin Etienne's initiative to attack Fang Yen gave him a headache. After all, Qin Etienne was the one and only girl in his life. He really didn't know how he could persist if there was no Qin Etienne in his life. Maybe he would usually tease or ridicule Fang Yen, but when outsiders came to attack Fang Yen, he couldn't bear to be the first to jump out to help Fang Yen. Why can't Mr. Fang be friends with Xia? Can it be that Xia's friend can only be a pretty boy like you? Who are you calling a pretty boy? Do you believe that I will let someone sue you for slander? Feng Yuanqing was really angry. He was indeed young, and his skin was very white, but he saw himself as an idol and a powerful actor. Wasn't it insulting to be called a pretty boy? If you don't learn well at such a young age, you won't have any future prospects when you grow up. This time, Fang Yen was not going to let it go. You can't scold him, but you can scold his students for growing up to be useless. Isn't that a blatant slap in his face? This was even more unacceptable. Fang Yen looked at Xia and asked, "Are we friends?" Xia glanced at Feng Yuanqing and said in a soft but firm voice, "Yes, you are my friend." You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.